Chapter 94. Ning Shu still wanted to express the excitement of meeting an old friend, but the school doctor's disdainful words extinguished the enthusiasm in her heart. It seemed like the school doctor didn't even know her. Ning Shu looked at the school doctor. He didn't look any different from before. He was still tall and sexy, giving people a feeling of abstinence. Especially when the gold-rimmed glasses reflected light. It was too fucking abstinent. Now he pointed a gun at her with an indifferent face. Ning Shu felt scared. This was someone who killed the female lead and created the apocalypse. Ning Shu just wanted to say, "Please let him go." Lone Wolf and Young Phoenix clenched their fists, but they didn't dare to move. When Young Phoenix looked at Ning Shu, her eyes were filled with resentment. She seemed to resent Ning Shu for losing the gene fluid and giving it to someone else. The three sides confronted each other. Ning Shu's heart was like a group of dogs. Now she was the target of two sides. If necessary, she would be the first to be killed. A gust of wind blew, and the breeze rolled up the school doctor's clothes. His clothes were fluttering, and his legs were so long. The wind brushed past Ning Shu's face. Ning Shu even smelled an elegant fragrance. It was probably the school doctor's fragrance. Ning Shu, this is the apocalypse. Why does the uncle have the leisure to use perfume? He doesn't feel guilty for what he did. Does he not feel guilty at all? Friend, put down your guns and let's talk. We are wasting time. It will be troublesome if the zombies are attracted. Lone Wolf said first. Ning Shu suddenly realized a problem. Lone Wolf and the agents didn't seem to know the school doctor. Wasn't the school doctor a wanted criminal? Didn't he even have a picture of him? This person was more valuable than the gene fluid. However, it seemed that the original owner didn't know what the genetic scientist with the code name Madman looked like. She just asked them to find the gene fluid. She probably didn't expect them to catch Madman. Uncle, you are so awesome. Do you have people in your family? Uncle, you are so evil. Do you have people in your family? Ning Shu's face trembled. When she looked up, she could see the black muzzle. She might as well lower her head and pretend not to see it. The school doctor heard Lone Wolf's words and nodded. Lone Wolf thought the person in front of him agreed. But the next sentence made Lone Wolf's handsome face stiffen. Wipe the brain matter off your hands and wipe the gene fluid bottle clean. Ning Shu said. Seeing Ning Shu raise his head with a face full of gray brain matter, he turned his head as if he couldn't bear it. Wipe your face too. At this time, why do you care so much? Ning Shu wiped her hands on her body twice, and then wiped the bottle of gene fluid clean. The gene fluid bottle was very small. It was almost the size of a penicillin bottle. There wasn't much gene fluid in it. When Ning Shu passed the bottle to the school doctor, Young Phoenix, who had been holding back, finally couldn't help but shoot at Ning Shu. Ning Shu had been guarding against Young Phoenix and Lone Wolf. When he saw Young Phoenix move, he activated his chi and ran behind the school doctor. He smelled the scent again. It was indeed the scent of the school doctor. It didn't smell like perfume at such a close distance. It was probably the smell after bathing. Why did it feel like the school doctor didn't live in the apocalypse? Young Phoenix was very confident in her shooting skills. This shot would definitely kill the stupid Hua. However, she didn't expect to hit a shadow. How could she be so fast? Seeing that her shot missed, Young Phoenix's cold face became colder. She pursed her lips tightly. The school doctor pointed his gun at Young Phoenix. Lone Wolf and the others were very nervous. For gun barrels pointed at the school doctor. The school doctor's face didn't change. Instead, the other party became more nervous. What's the situation now? Don't come near me. It stinks. In such a serious atmosphere, the school doctor suddenly said. It scared the others so much that they almost fired. Ning Shu was speechless. Now is not the time to talk about this. Uncle, let's run first. As soon as Ning Shu finished speaking, she felt terrible. This scene was so familiar. Why did the school doctor always do things that made people's hearts explode? The school doctor said. I feel like I've experienced something like this before. Roar, roar. The zombies that were shaken off caught up. The mutated zombie was already dead. These zombies seemed to have lost control. When they smelled the scent of humans, they roared even louder and more violently. Okay. The most important thing now is to deal with the zombies. Let's work together to deal with the zombies. Lone Wolf pulled a long face. It showed that he was in an extremely bad mood. I've said it in advance. When dealing with zombies, no one is allowed to backstab. Ning Shu curled his lips. Anyway, he didn't believe a word that Lone Wolf said. The school doctor took the lead and blew off the head of the zombie in front. His speed was very fast. Everyone was stunned. Lone Wolf looked at the gun in his hand with a complicated expression. The latest gun. Ning Shu didn't know what the new gun was, but he felt that the gun in the school doctor's hand was very fast. The bullet speed was also very fast. When the bullet passed through the air, it created white smoke. Roar! These zombies didn't know fear. They only thirsted for human flesh. When the zombies in front fell, the ones behind came one after another. Ning Shu took out his gun to defend against the zombies. Soon Ning Shu ran out of bullets. He grabbed a wooden stick from the ground and used all his strength to hit the zombie's head. Then the zombie's head exploded like a watermelon. The gray brain matter splashed on Ning Shu's face. The school doctor next to Ning Shu moved a few steps away and tightly pursed his lips. Ning Shu turned his head and saw that the school doctor was a little far away from him. He quickly chased after him. To be honest, Ning Shu would rather believe the school doctor than Lone Wolf and the others. One must know that young Phoenix wanted to kill her just now. The school doctor pulled out a gun from his waist and threw it to Ning Shu. Go away, you disgusted me. Ning Shu caught the gun in a flurry and shot at the zombie's head. The zombie's head exploded in an instant. There are too many zombies. Let's go first. Young Phoenix shouted with a sharp voice. Some of the zombies were tearing the mutated zombie's body. There would be more zombies later. Go, how can we go? The car is out of gas. Lone Wolf roared and shot a zombie. Then everyone's eyes moved to the school doctor. The school doctor didn't seem to notice everyone's gaze and patted the dust on his clothes. This friend. Lone Wolf just opened his mouth, but was interrupted by the school doctor. No. Lone Wolf's face was livid. Seeing that there was going to be a big battle, the school doctor's indifferent look made people angry. Chapter 95. The team's car was out of gas, and after being tortured by the mutated zombies, it was basically scrapped. Therefore, everyone put all their hopes on the school doctor, but the school doctor firmly refused. The surrounding zombies were roaring, and the car was broken. Could it be that they could only rely on their legs to run? Everyone felt particularly miserable today. Ning Shu saw that the nearest zombie wanted to grab her, so she killed it with one shot. Her face was covered in brain matter, and she looked at the school doctor and said earnestly, "Uncle, let's run first." The school doctor looked straight ahead, but he didn't look at Ning Shu's face. "You stay away from me." Ning Shu crying blind. Lone Wolf gave his team members a look and slowly moved towards the school doctor's car. The others pretended to fight zombies to cover Lone Wolf. Ning Shu saw that Lone Wolf was trying to pull the car door, and she was a little anxious. She didn't expect Lone Wolf to take her and the school doctor with him. These people were cruel and merciless, and they killed people for the country. Uncle. Ning Shu wanted to reach out and pull the school doctor's clothes, but the school doctor quickly dodged. Ning Shu anxiously said, "Uncle, they're going to take your car." Was it going to be the same as the plot and get dismembered by the zombies? The school doctor suddenly reached out and grabbed Ning Shu's collar, making her stand in front of him. Ning Shu didn't have time to react, and then she saw a zombie not far away suddenly explode, and then the brain matter splattered on Ning Shu's face. "Ning Shu, fuck this bitch." Ning Shu angrily turned around and saw that the school doctor had already left. She didn't have time to be angry and hurriedly followed him. Lone Wolf was still struggling with the car door, and even wanted to open the hood, but the car couldn't be opened. Young Phoenix and the others were anxious, and they didn't even want to deal with the zombies, so they came to help. Even after using all the skills of the Special Agent Agency, they still couldn't pry open the tortoiseshell out of the car. The school doctor took out the car key, and the car made a sound of unlocking. Lone Wolf thought that it would be a piece of cake to open the door and start the car when the car was unlocked. However, he felt something cold on his head. Lone Wolf didn't want to experience the taste of the gun. He raised his hand, his handsome face a little twisted. "This is a misunderstanding. Lone Wolf squeezed out the words from his throat. The school doctor snorted and took the lead to enter the car. Ning Shu shamelessly sat in the front passenger seat. Looking at the enclosed cars, Ning Shu suddenly felt very safe. Lone Wolf and the rest saw that the man who had appeared out of nowhere did not seem to want to take them away. Their faces were filled with anxiety as they tapped on the car window. Their mouths opened and closed, but they could not hear what they were saying. The soundproofing effect was amazing. The surrounding zombies surrounded them again. Gulang's heart was burning with anger. Damn it, there was no end to it. Young Phoenix tapped on the car window beside the school doctor. Her cold face was full of anxiety, and there was a trace of begging. The school doctor squinted at the woman. The car window was opened. Young Phoenix quickly grabbed the school doctor's clothes and shouted, "Please take us away, please." Young Phoenix looked at the school doctor pitifully. The school doctor looked at his clothes coldly and silently pressed the window button. The window immediately went up. Young Phoenix was afraid that her hand would be stuck, so she could only let go of the school doctor's clothes. She took back her hand and looked at the school doctor dumbfoundedly. "Isn't this a joke? If you don't want to, why did you open the window?" Only Ning Shu knew why. The school doctor's obsessive-compulsive disorder and misophobia acted up. In comparison, Ning Shu found that the school doctor was more lenient to her. He only let the zombies splash her face with brain matter. The brain matter was not scary at all. Ning Shu looked at the school doctor. His side face was very cold. There was not even a speck of dust on his black coat. His legs looked especially long as he sat on the car seat. His whole body exuded a temperament of abstinence. Therefore, scientists and doctors were the most likely to be perverts. The school doctor had both identities. She did not know why he did not drive. Ning Shu looked at Gulang and the others outside. They were dealing with zombies while desperately tapping on the car window. This feeling was very good. Who are those people outside? The school doctor turned his head and asked Ning Shu. But then he immediately turned his head back and stretched out his slender fingers to take a piece of paper and threw it to Ning Shu. Ning Shu took the paper and wiped the brain matter on her face. Who caused her to be like this? Who disliked her? I am the same as them. We are all agents of the country's special agent group. Ning Shu said honestly. The school doctor raised his eyebrows and looked at Ning Shu. You agent. Ning Shu was speechless. From these 4 words, Ning Shu felt endless contempt and mockery from the school doctor. Not everyone could be as perverted as you. After experiencing 2 worlds, she realized that this guy had changed the course of human history and became the demon king of destruction. She was still a useless person. The corner of Ning Shu's mouth twitched as she silently wiped the brain matter off her face. When the people outside were about to die of exhaustion, the school doctor opened the car window. Young Phoenix, who had dealt with a zombie, immediately ran over. This time, she did not pull on the school doctor's clothes. Young Phoenix was panting and sweating. The sweat slid down her neck, and then flowed to her white chest, and into her deep cleavage. Ning Shu gulped a mouthful of saliva. The school doctor looked back at Ning Shu and said disdainfully, "Useless." Ning Shu. Oh, why couldn't she understand what the school doctor was referring to? If you have any requests, just say it. Young Phoenix frowned. We are out of bullets, please save us. The school doctor asked with an indifferent face. Anything. The school doctor's sharp eyes swept across young Phoenix's face. Young Phoenix's face paled and looked at Lone Wolf. Lone Wolf's face was very bad, and he nodded at young Phoenix. Young Phoenix took a deep breath and said, "Yes, please save us." Yes. The school doctor nodded and then said, "Oh right, my car is full of bombs. If I die, I can detonate the car before I die. Also, the windows are bulletproof. You can't get out if you come in." "Oh, your sister." Lone Wolf and the others stiffened and quickly got into the car. The school doctor suddenly pulled out a gun from his waist and shot the forehead of the man sitting in the back. The man's face was full of shock before he died. "What are you doing? What are you doing?" Both young Phoenix and Lone Wolf pointed their guns at the school doctor, while Tarantula pointed his gun at Ning Shu, forming a confrontation. "Ning Shu, I didn't kill him, why are you pointing at me?" Chapter 96. Ning Shu didn't understand why the uncle suddenly shot and killed people. If he didn't want to save them, why did he let them get in the car? She didn't understand. The school doctor withdrew his gun and frowned. Didn't you notice that he was bitten by a zombie? Push him out. Huh. Young Phoenix didn't believe him and began to check the dead companion. Finally, she found a claw wound on the arm, and the flesh began to turn blue. Push him out, the school doctor said again. Young Phoenix gritted her teeth, opened the car door, kicked the person out and then slammed the door. The person who was kicked out was immediately dismembered by the zombies. The scene was really bloody. Everyone's expression was very complicated. Ning Shu asked the school doctor, "How do you know he was hurt by a zombie?" The school doctor looked at Ning Shu with contempt. "Don't you smell the blood?" Damn, she really didn't smell it. He was indeed an expert in dissection. He was so sensitive to the smell of blood. Lone Wolf, who was pointing his gun at Ning Shu, withdrew his gun. He sneered and said, "Even if that's the case, Flower's face is covered in zombie brain juice. She might also be infected. We should push her out." Damn, what kind of hatred did this guy have with her? The school doctor looked at Ning Shu. "You're infected?" "No, I'm not infected." Ning Shu quickly waved his hand. A person who had mastered the peerless martial arts was in good health. "What evidence do you have to prove that you're not infected?" Tarantula laughed, making his ordinary face look sinister. Ning Shu curled his lips and said, "What evidence do you have to prove that I'm infected?" "Okay, Tarantula," Young Phoenix said and then said to the school doctor, "Thank you for saving us." "No need." The school doctor adjusted his gold-rimmed glasses. Ning Shu looked at him and inexplicably felt that the school doctor had some ulterior motive. Was he interested in the female lead? The school doctor stepped on the gas and got rid of the zombies behind. Not long after, he stopped and didn't seem to want to go anymore. Lone Wolf pulled a long face and asked in a deep voice, "Why don't you go? What are you doing here in the wilderness?" Lone Wolf was extremely disgusted and repulsed by this person who had appeared out of nowhere. Ever since he met this person, Lone Wolf realized that his previous winning streak no longer existed. Even his position as the captain was threatened. The school doctor patted his clothes to get rid of the dust, as if he didn't hear Lone Wolf's words. "Hey, what's with your attitude? I'm talking to you." Lone Wolf couldn't help but want to pull out his gun and kill this annoying person. Ning Shu realized that the school doctor was actually quite infuriating, so he asked, "Uncle, why aren't we leaving? Zombies' sense of smell can only detect humans within 2 kilometers. The school doctor explained. Ning Shu was about to kneel down in front of the uncle and asked, "How did you know?" "I've tested it before. I'm always interested in the unknown." The school doctor turned around and looked at Ning Shu. "I've seen people as stupid as you." Ning Shu was speechless. Ning Shu laughed dryly and didn't answer. Lone Wolf fidgeted with his hair and said, "Even so, are we just going to stay here and wait for the zombies to catch up? Then run for 2 kilometers and wait for the zombies to catch up?" The school doctor looked at Lone Wolf coldly, his gold-rimmed glasses glowing with a cold light. He said, "If you mess with your hair again and make the car full of dust, I'll kill you." Lone Wolf's hand froze. He wanted to ignore him, but when he saw the gun on the man's waist, he finally put down his hand in annoyance. Ning Shu's mouth twitched. "Uncle, you're exaggerating. Now is a special time. Survival is so difficult. Don't care about these trivial things." Seeing the man's strength, Young Phoenix and Tarantula didn't dare to speak. Young Phoenix held Lone Wolf's hand and asked him to bear with it. Lone Wolf was even angrier. Losing face in front of his woman was really damaging to his self-esteem as a man. "By the way, I don't have any extra food for you, so you have to go back and find your own supplies," the school doctor said lightly. Everyone was speechless. After a while, everyone returned to the place where the battle took place. The zombies were gone, but the broken van was still there. Lone Wolf took the lead to get out of the car to check if the supplies were still there. Ning Shu also wanted to get out of the car to help, but he was stopped by the school doctor. "You sit here. You'll only cause trouble if you go out." Ning Shu was speechless. However, Ning Shu did not get out of the car. She sat in the car with the school doctor. Moreover, Lone Wolf and the others wanted to kill her, so it was safer for her to stay with the school doctor. When she turned around, she saw that the school doctor's gaze was focused on young Phoenix, who was moving things. His gaze was sharp. Young Phoenix was a special agent, so her senses were very sharp. Naturally, she could feel that someone was looking at her, causing her muscles to tense up. This man's eyes were really sharp, so strong that it made people unable to breathe. Ning-Shu asked, "Uncle, do you like young Phoenix?" "Like." The school doctor smiled faintly. His face looked a lot gentler, but Ning-Shu felt that it was even more sinister. "I'm a little interested." The school doctor's slender fingers tapped on the steering wheel. Ning-Shu had a feeling of wanting to mourn for young Phoenix. The school doctor once said to a female protagonist that he only wanted her. In the end, he was caught and used as a test subject. He said that he wanted to improve human genes and activate advanced human genes. Then the world was ruined by the uncle. What did he mean by a little interested? Did he really like her? Or did he want to dissect her? The school doctor supported his head with his hand and looked a little lazy. He looked at Ning-Shu and asked, "Have we met somewhere before? Why do you call me uncle?" I'm used to calling him uncle. How should I put it? Admit that they were once in cahoots?" Just as Ning-Shu was about to speak, a buzzing sound suddenly appeared in her mind. Then a cold mechanical voice said, "Don't worry. Players can't expose their identity. Players are just passers-by. They can't break the rules of the world." She didn't plan to tell the school doctor. Otherwise, the school doctor would definitely dissect her. The school doctor raised his eyebrows and looked at Ning-Shu. He snorted. "I'm 18 years old. Uncle, you're definitely older than me. I call you uncle because I respect you." Ning-Shu casually came up with an excuse. This body was only 17 years old. The people in the car were chatting, but Lone Wolf and young Phoenix, who were moving things, had an argument. Lone Wolf didn't want to be with the school doctor anymore, but young Phoenix said that she still wanted to follow the school doctor. They should at least go their separate ways when they reached a safe place. Chapter 97. Young Phoenix's reason for insisting on following the school doctor was very good. This place was very desolate, close to the border. There was no one, and there were so many things. Did they have to rely on their 2 legs to walk? Besides, there were only 3 people left in the team. Her, Lone Wolf, and Tarantula. Young Phoenix had subconsciously kicked Ning-Shu out of the team. What if they encountered zombies? Carrying these things, could they outrun zombies? If they encountered a mutated zombie, they had no way to resist it. Lone Wolf knew that he was being unreasonable, but he inexplicably did not want to be with that man. That man gave him a very dangerous feeling, and his heart was very repulsed. But young Phoenix's reason was very good. The other man in the team, Tarantula, was also on young Phoenix's side. 2 against 1, Lone Wolf could only compromise. He pulled young Phoenix's hand and said, "Stay away from that man. I think he has bad intentions towards you. Don't be fooled." The school doctor, who was called a pervert, was calm and did not care about Lone Wolf's words. He was so calm that Ning-Shu could not help but admire him. In fact, Ning-Shu understood why Lone Wolf did not want to follow the school doctor. It was because the school doctor was too awesome. His light was too dazzling, overshadowing the brilliance of the male lead. What kind of person was the male lead? He was born to feel superior and had his own pride. How could he tolerate being inferior to others? But in the current situation, Lone Wolf could only endure the anger in his heart. He moved the things to the car while looking at the school doctor with resentful eyes. The school doctor silently looked at his fingernails and did not pay attention to him. Lone Wolf's handsome face was livid with anger. When the things were moved, the 3 people got on the car. Tarantula saw the leisurely Ning-Shu and could not help but say, "Some people only know how to eat for free and don't know how to help. What did she do to offend this guy? He was always looking for trouble with her. Didn't you move up? What does it matter if I'm there or not?" Ning-Shu was now relying on the school doctor's support. "You!" Wolf Spider raised his fist at Ning-Shu. Then he glanced at the school doctor in fear and mocked Ning-Shu. "You thought you found a big backer." Ning-Shu had a smug look on his face. Tarantula stopped messing around. She then turned to the school doctor and said, "Friend, where are you going next?" Ning Shu did not know if it was his imagination, but when young Phoenix spoke to the school doctor, her voice sounded much softer. In fact, this was a normal phenomenon. For agents like them, in order to complete the mission, it was necessary to use their own advantages to take some necessary measures. For example, young Phoenix had a hot body and a beautiful and cold face. These were her advantages. Ning Shu looked at his own face in the rearview mirror. His face was covered in dust and dried brain matter. His facial features were ordinary and his hair was messy. One word, unsightly. Ning Shu glanced at the cool and elegant female lead and silently tidied his hair, smoothing out his messy hair. Oh my, she really did become the female lead's foil. There were only 2 women in the team, and her existence was the perfect foil for young Phoenix. He completely suspected that the original owner's existence was for this purpose. Bitter. Hearing young Phoenix's words, the school doctor raised his eyebrows and turned his head to look at young Phoenix. Young Phoenix almost imperceptibly straightened her chest and said, "Where are you going?" The school doctor adjusted the glasses on the bridge of his nose and asked, "Where do you plan to go?" "I'll follow you." Hearing this, young Phoenix's face showed a smile, making her face even more beautiful. However, Lone Wolf's face was cold. Just like that, the school doctor joined the team. Young Phoenix went wherever she wanted to go. Lone Wolf was so angry that he pulled a long face all day long. When they met zombies, he would be the first to rush up and vent his anger on them. However, young Phoenix trusted the school doctor more and more. Every time Ning Shu saw the school doctor's cold eyes, his heart tightened. Especially when he saw young Phoenix face the school doctor with a little girl's attitude. Ning Shu was even more horrified. "Uncle, you are going to counterattack and become the male lead's rhythm." The apocalypse was so realistic. In such an extreme environment, human nature would be magnified countless times. The primitive rule of human beings was the law of the jungle, and the strong would be respected. Worshipping the strong and submitting to the strong was an instinct. The uncle had advanced weapons in his hands, and he was fast and agile. Every time he faced zombies, he would not panic. What was even more valuable was that this man did not seem to be living in the apocalypse. Clean clothes, neatly trimmed nails, and there was not a speck of dirt on his body, which made him exceptionally charming. On the other hand, Lone Wolf was so angry that he slashed and stomped on zombies all day long. He did not have any elegance. His clothes were dirty, and his whole body smelled of sweat. With such a contrast, Lone Wolf was simply set in the mud, and the male lead's halo dimmed. However, what Ning Shu was more concerned about was the purpose of young Phoenix's group. They had been looking for the gene fluid for many days, but they did not find it. Ning Shu touched the gene fluid in his pocket. This gene fluid was taken from the mutated zombie. At that time, the school doctor found the bottle dirty, so Ning Shu put it away. However, after so long, the school doctor did not ask for it from her. Ning Shu naturally would not be stupid to give the gene fluid to the school doctor. Ning Shu had always been curious about the gene fluid. What was it that could make the world like this? According to the original owner's memory, the leader of the special agent group said that the country wanted to strengthen the body and improve the genes. The person in charge of this project was a genetic scientist with the code name Madman. However, he did not expect that the gene fluid would be developed. However, not everyone could be strengthened. There was a 50% chance of activating the high-level genes of the human body and awakening abilities. There was also a 50% chance of becoming a monster that did not feel pain, had infinite strength, and only had appetite. Moreover, the virus carried by the body could assimilate the human body into its own kind. The school doctor who created this situation ran away with the gene fluid, and the monsters in the laboratory rushed out, causing disaster to the world. The people in the laboratory, who were lucky enough to awaken their abilities, were recruited by the country. In order to recover the gene fluid that was taken away by the school doctor, Ning Shu's group was sent on a mission. Lone Wolf and young Phoenix knew about the gene fluid's effect, so they betrayed the country and took the gene fluid. "Uncle, you are really a sinner." What was the school doctor's purpose for following this team? Did he have a hobby of dissecting the female lead? "Come here." The school doctor uncle waved at Ning Shu, as if he was teasing a puppy. Ning Shu walked over with a black face and asked, "Uncle, what's the matter? Come, break this steel bar." The school doctor uncle pointed at Ning Shu's thumb-thick steel bar and said, "Ning Shu, why?" Chapter 98. Ning Shu heard that the school doctor wanted her to bend the steel bar. What kind of joke was this? Why do I have to bend the steel bar? Ning Shu asked. The school doctor looked at Ning Shu. His gold-rimmed glasses were glowing, and he looked like a monster. Ning Shu immediately picked up the steel bar on the ground. "Use all your strength to bend it," the school doctor said. Ning Shu nodded. She used all her strength to bend the steel bar. It didn't break, but it bent. Ning Shu asked the school doctor, "Is this okay?" The school doctor nodded and reached out to touch Ning Shu's arm. Ning Shu threw down the steel bar and ran far away. She looked at him warily. "Uncle, what are you doing?" "Damn, being touched by the uncle was so scary. I'm just testing your strength. I noticed that you're quite strong before." Ning Shu waved. "Come here, let me touch you." Ning Shu, "Uft. Come here, let me touch your muscles," the school doctor repeated. Ning Shu felt uncomfortable. She was strong because she had mastered the ultimate martial arts. Ning Shu felt ashamed every time she thought of the name of the secret manual. Ning Shu walked to the school doctor with small steps. When she saw the school doctor touching her body with a cold expression, Ning Shu felt cold all over. Why did she feel like she was going to be dissected by the school doctor? After touching her, the school doctor nodded. Although the muscles aren't big, they're quite tight. This is the ideal state. When the school doctor spoke, his gold-rimmed glasses reflected light. Ning Shu was so scared that she almost peed her pants. Was the school doctor going to dissect her? "This is your dinner." Young Phoenix walked over and broke the affectionate gaze between Ning Shu and the school doctor. Young Phoenix held 2 boxes of hardtack and 2 bottles of water in her hands. She passed them to the school doctor. The school doctor passed a box of biscuits to Ning Shu. Ning Shu quickly took it. She was already hungry. When young Phoenix saw this scene, her eyes flickered. Ning Shu said, "Flower, come out for a moment. I have something to tell you." Ning Shu felt quite confused as to why little Phoenix was looking for her. She followed little Phoenix out of the house. This house was quite simple and crude, and it was made of mud. No one had lived here for a long time. This was the temporary resting place for the team. Young Phoenix stopped, and Ning Shu stood 2 meters away from young Phoenix. This was the safest place for both of them. Ning Shu was on guard against young Phoenix. "Why are you looking for me?" Ning Shu asked. Young Phoenix, Ning Shu stretched out her white hand. Seeing Ning Shu's blank face, she said coldly, "Flower, hand over the geno fluid. We can complete the mission." "Gene fluid? I don't have the geno fluid," Ning Shu said. Young Phoenix's face turned cold. "Don't play dumb. The geno fluid was stolen by the mutated zombies. It ended up in your hands." Ning Shu suddenly realized something and said, "That geno fluid, I don't know where it is. If you didn't mention it, I would have forgotten about it." Then Ning Shu made a guilty face. "Sister Young Phoenix, it's all my fault." Young Phoenix was unhappy when Ning Shu called her sister. Seeing that the other party was so stubborn, she said coldly, "Flower, we are all from the Special Agent Group. Do you want to see us fail the mission and be punished by the officer?" Ning Shu rolled her eyes. "You all betrayed the country. Why do you care about punishment?" These words were just to coax the original owner. Ning Shu cried and anxiously said, "What should I do? I really lost the geno fluid. The situation was so dangerous, and there were zombies. I didn't even notice where I lost it." Young Phoenix was speechless because of Ning Shu. She coldly snorted and turned away. Ning Shu curled his lips and finally went back to the house to eat dinner. Eating biscuits every day, Ning Shu was about to vomit. But these things were easy to carry and not easy to spoil. They were the best choice. The school doctor didn't know where he got the milk. He was drinking it when he saw Ning Shu come in. He asked, "Why is she looking for you?" Ning Shu's eyes turned. He was thinking if he should tell the truth. If he told him about the geno fluid, wouldn't it remind him? What if he wanted to go back? In the end, Ning Shu told the truth. "She asked me about the geno fluid." The school doctor didn't say anything. He drank the milk and didn't ask Ning Shu for it. Ning Shu was a little touched. Uncle, you are really a good person. Although you are a pervert. Young Phoenix who just left came back. This time, not only Young Phoenix came, but also Lone Wolf and Tarantula. Walking into the house, Lone Wolf coldly snorted. He looked at the school doctor with hostility. His handsome face was a little decadent. He didn't look like the future overlord of the base. Everyone was sitting at a simple table. Lone Wolf, who was sitting at the head of the table, coughed. He tried to show a little momentum. It looked like he was bluffing. Young Phoenix, you say it? Lone Wolf said to Young Phoenix. He really didn't want to talk to this man. Seeing this man, Lone Wolf felt suffocated. This team was actually divided into two teams. One was Lone Wolf, Young Phoenix, and Tarantula. The other team was Ning Shu and the school doctor. The relationship between the two teams depended on Young Phoenix. Do you know what we are going to do? Young Phoenix asked the school doctor. The school doctor drank a mouthful of milk and didn't speak. Young Phoenix seemed to understand the school doctor's personality and said, "We are going to find the Geno fluid." Everyone looked at the school doctor. The school doctor didn't have any expression. Young Phoenix was a little frustrated. This man was really difficult. She had encountered many missions, but she had never met a man like him who was indifferent to her. This Geno fluid can stimulate people's abilities and strengthen the body. Now that there are more and more zombies, human survival is getting more and more difficult. Finding the Geno fluid can stimulate more ability users to deal with zombies. Young Phoenix said with a serious face. The school doctor finally finished his milk and stuffed the unfinished biscuits into Ning Shu's arms. Ning Shu silently ate the biscuits left by the school doctor. If you are looking for the Geno fluid, you don't have to. The Geno fluid is half finished and Madman is dead. The school doctor said lightly. Puff, cough, cough. Ning Shu, who was eating the biscuits, choked and quickly drank water. Hearing the school doctor say that Madman was dead, he said indifferently that he was dead. What was the school doctor trying to do? Fake death to give the wrong information that Madman was dead? Lone Wolf frowned and coldly asked the school doctor. How do you know? How do you know that Madman is dead? Who are you? You are the most mysterious person in this team. You don't even have a name. Even Young Phoenix's face showed suspicion and asked, How do you know that Madman is dead? I killed Madman. The school doctor said lightly with a look of pity on his face. He destroyed the Geno fluid. Puff, cough, cough. Ning Shu choked again and hammered his chest. Chapter 99. Listening to the school doctor's nonsense with a straight face, Ning Shu felt uncomfortable. This made Ning Shu, the only one who knew his identity, feel itchy in her heart. She really wanted to say that this guy was crazy. How could he kill a crazy person? Suicide? The school doctor raised his eyebrows and looked at Ning Shu. Seeing her rolling her eyes, he reached out his hand and patted Ning Shu's back. He said faintly, Such a big reaction. Do you have a problem? Ning Shu waved her hand and said, I don't have any problem. What problem could she have? Seeing the school doctor's cold face, she didn't dare to say anything even if she had a problem. The person who got rid of the gene fluid has the nerve to stay here. How thick-skinned. Don't you feel guilty at all? Young Phoenix retorted. Because of you, many people have been killed and infected by zombies. Ning Shu. Oh, listening to Young Phoenix's accusation, Ning Shu reflexively looked at the school doctor. Those words should be directed at the school doctor. The person who created the zombies should feel guilty. Seeing Ning Shu staring at him, the school doctor shrugged and said, I didn't lose the gene fluid. It's useless for you to look at me. Ning Shu. Once again, her understanding of the school doctor was refreshed. The school doctor's face was one of the thickest in the world. Flower, I'm talking to you. Where did you lose the gene fluid? Do you know how important it is? Young Phoenix asked Ning Shu calmly. Ning Shu rolled her eyes. I didn't even remember where I lost it. There were so many zombies. I didn't even have time to deal with the zombies. How could I remember the gene fluid? Even if you lose your life, you should protect the gene fluid. Young Phoenix accused Ning Shu. Damn, there was no end to this. Ning Shu slammed the table, and suddenly the shabby table completely fell apart. Young Phoenix, do you want to fight with me? Although the Young Phoenix did not like her before, it maintained a noble and cold attitude, unlike now when it was fighting with her and trying to suppress her. Ning Shu looked at the unperturbed school doctor uncle. Could it be that the female lead was jealous because she was close to the uncle? Little flower, I'm not going to argue with you because you're young. Are you done yet? Do you think you're going to be so arrogant just because you have someone backing you up? Young Phoenix said coldly. She looked at the school doctor with resentment in her eyes. Hua Duo did not have a good figure. In terms of looks compared to her, Hua Duo was simply ugly. Why did this man want to be close to Hua Duo? Or instead of her? Thinking of this, the young Phoenix's expression became even more bitter. Lone Wolf saw the resentful look on young Phoenix's face, and his face turned ugly. He shouted, "What are you arguing about? Now is the time to plan where to go next, not to argue about such details." Young Phoenix said, "Without the gene fluid, it's useless to say anything." Lone Wolf looked at the school doctor with a complicated expression. Finally he said, "Since Madman is dead and the gene fluid has been destroyed, let's go back." Lone Wolf's meaning was obvious. He was not going to carry out any more missions, and was ready to go back. Ning Shu did not have any objections. Anyway, the gene fluid was in her hands. When she went back and handed it to the head of the special agent group, her mission would be considered completed. Then she would have to think about survival. However, she could not show that she wanted to go back. Ning Shu said listlessly, "If we go back like this, we won't get anything. We'll be punished." Young Phoenix rolled her eyes at Ning Shu. Who is this all because of? Anyway, it's not because of her, Ning Shu said silently in her heart. In the end, the team unanimously agreed to go back. Now that there was no gene fluid, and Lone Wolf and Young Phoenix had not awakened their superpowers, they naturally needed the power of the country to protect themselves. For the time being, they did not want to betray them. The atmosphere suddenly became silent. Lone Wolf snorted and took the lead to leave. He glanced at Ning Shu with impatience and killing intent in his eyes. Ning Shu leaned against the school doctor. The school doctor's cold eyes met Lone Wolf's. Lone Wolf snorted and turned to leave. Flatterer. Tarantula mocked Ning Shu. The school doctor turned his head. Ning Shu sneered. Your teammates. Why is your character so bad? Ning Shu, haha, who knows? You're quite strong. Is it natural? The school doctor asked Ning Shu as he adjusted his glasses. His eyes reflected the light, giving people a dangerous feeling. How should he answer this question? Why did he feel that the school doctor was up to no good? Uncle loved to dissect and study talented people. Ning Shu grinned at the school doctor and said, "Uncle, I was born this way." The school doctor did not say anything else. Ning Shu waved his hand, and Ning Shu immediately moved in front of the school doctor. "Don't get so close," the school doctor said. Ning Shu curled his lips and took 2 steps back. When will the school doctor change his bad habit? The gene fluid is on you. Have you ever thought about awakening your superpower? The school doctor asked Ning Shu. Ning Shu almost jumped up. Seeing the school doctor's indifferent face, he gave up quibbling. He shook his head and said, "I don't want to." "Why? Your teammates all want to get the gene fluid to awaken their superpower?" The school doctor raised his eyebrows and looked at Ning Shu. "Are you afraid of becoming a zombie?" To be honest, this 50% probability was really bad. You either become a superpower user, or a zombie that only knows how to eat human flesh. Ning Shu quickly nodded. "I'm afraid of becoming a zombie." The school doctor's expression was very disdainful. "You don't even dare to try the 50% probability. Useless. What's the use of trash like you?" Ning Shu heard the disdain in the school doctor's voice. Ning Shu said, "You can laugh as much as you want. I still need this gene fluid to complete the mission." "Uncle." Ning Shu sat next to the school doctor and asked, "Uncle, where do you think this gene fluid came from?" Ning Shu had always been curious about how this gene fluid came about. The school doctor faintly glanced at Ning Shu. "Why are you so close to me when you want to talk? TSK, bitches are so pretentious." Ning Shu moved to the side. Ning Shu didn't expect the school doctor to be able to answer her question. The school doctor was just so capricious. The school doctor adjusted his gold-rimmed glasses and said, "In fact, supernatural abilities are the same as the cultivation in the legends. They both have attributes. The so-called spiritual root is actually a high-level gene. This gene fluid was actually experimented on by a madman from a woman. He extracted the high-level gene fragments from her body. Some people failed to activate it because they couldn't match the genes in the gene fluid. Instead, their genes were messed up and they became monsters. However, some people could match the high-level genes in the gene fluid and activate the hidden high-level genes in their bodies. Ningshu. Oh, uncle, are you crazy? Is your family made? The woman the uncle was talking about was the female lead of the school world, Samida. The female lead was treated like this. She was definitely the most aggrieved female lead in history. She was probably dead by now. Chapter 100. Originally, they were going to look for the gene fluid, but after such a long time, they still couldn't find the gene fluid. The team was already disheartened, and the school doctor said that madman was dead, so there was no more gene fluid. Thus, they decided to go back. More importantly, they encountered more and more zombies on the road, and there were more and more mutated zombies. So far, they had encountered 3 mutated zombies, and these mutated zombies could summon other zombies. The team was struggling to deal with these mutated zombies, so the decision to go back was basically unanimous. But what Ningshu couldn't figure out was why the uncle followed them back. Was he walking into a trap? Flower, get up. The school doctor used his foot to nudge Ningshu. Ningshu opened her eyes, rubbed her eyes, and followed the school doctor into the car. Young Phoenix originally wanted to sit in the front passenger seat, but Ningshu took the seat first. Young Phoenix stared at her and sat in the back. Along the way, Ningshu felt a chill on the back of her head. Needless to say, this was young Phoenix's gaze. Ningshu was now sure that young Phoenix's attention had shifted to the uncle, and Ningshu heard young Phoenix and Lone Wolf arguing more than once. Anyway, it was about whether or not he would betray her, and then young Phoenix would quibble, and there was no blah blah blah. But the school doctor, as the person involved, was indifferent as if nothing had happened, and he did what he should do. This made Lone Wolf gnash his teeth and wanted to kill the uncle more than once. Ningshu certainly didn't want anything to happen to the uncle. Once the uncle was in trouble, she would also be in trouble. Didn't he see Lone Wolf's eyes looking at her with killing intent? The school doctor who was driving the car didn't look good and said faintly, "There are zombies again." The atmosphere in the car suddenly became tense. Damn, is there an end to this? Tarantula cursed. Along the way, they had encountered countless zombies. Everyone had a feeling that there were only a few of them left in the world. They really didn't see a single person. How did the zombies survive? They were running out of supplies and ammunition. Ningshu was now killing zombies with an axe and a stick. The only person in the group who had a gun was the school doctor, but he didn't have any intention of leaving. At most, he would help Ningshu when he was about to be bitten by zombies. Towards the others, it didn't matter if they were there or not. The school doctor said that there were zombies coming. Sure enough, it didn't take long before they heard the roars of zombies. There were zombies around the car trying to surround it. The school doctor's face was cold. He stepped on the accelerator and directly rushed to the zombies in front of the car, and then mercilessly ran over them. Ningshu was about to throw up from the bumpy ride. Dong! A loud sound came from the roof of the car, and then the whole car shook twice. Everyone's face turned ugly as they encountered another mutated zombie. Why are there so many mutated zombies? Ningshu looked at the school doctor uncle. The uncle's face was calm and indifferent, but his tightly pursed lips showed that he was in a bad mood. Ningshu said to the school doctor uncle, "Uncle, why don't we get off the car and kill the mutated zombies?" "Flower, don't talk nonsense if you don't have a brain. There are so many zombies outside. If we go out, we will be surrounded by zombies. There are also mutated zombies. You want everyone to die," young Phoenix said with a cold face. Lone Wolf and Tarantula looked at Ningshu with an unfriendly face. Ningshu frowned and said, "Now the mutated zombies are on top. What if they break the car? Without the car, we will be torn apart by the zombies in minutes." Did they really think that she was willing to get off the car and face the zombies? Bang bang. The mutated zombies on the roof of the car kept the roof down. The uncle's car was relatively sturdy, so there was no problem for the time being. The uncle madly stepped on the gas pedal to get rid of the low-level zombies. Then he stopped the car and said to the people in the car, "Get off the car and kill this zombie." Everyone had no choice but to get off the car first. They madly fired at the zombies on top of the car. But the zombies were not harmed. Everyone's face showed a helpless look. The gap between the two sides was too big. Ning Shu held the gun and shot at the zombies, but the zombies dodged. Damn! Where did these mutated zombies come from? The school doctor uncle narrowed his eyes and aimed at the zombies, but he did not shoot. It was estimated that the zombies' speed was too fast. Lone Wolf threw away the gun in his hand and directly used a hidden weapon, but it was useless. Instead, the zombies got close to him and were about to take out his heart. "Lone Wolf!" Young Phoenix screamed. "Quickly shoot!" Lone Wolf rolled on the ground to avoid the zombies' attack and shouted at the school doctor uncle. Tarantula and Young Phoenix went up to help, but the zombies seemed to be targeting Lone Wolf. They must kill the male lead first. The school doctor uncle did not shoot. He kept aiming but did not shoot. It was estimated that he was looking for an opportunity. The zombies attacked Lone Wolf again. This time, Lone Wolf was one step slower and did not dodge the zombies' attack. Seeing that Lone Wolf was about to be killed by the zombies, suddenly, Lone Wolf's hand burst out a lightning-like light and hit the zombie's body. The zombie's body immediately emitted white smoke. The mutated zombie was stunned. Apparently, it was shocked by the scene in front of it. Its gray face showed fear. Everyone was stunned as they stared blankly at Lone Wolf's hand. Even Lone Wolf had a blank look on his face. Then, ecstasy filled his face as he muttered, "This is a superpower, a superpower." Taking advantage of the zombie's blank space, the school doctor uncle pulled the trigger and exploded the zombie's head. Although the school doctor uncle killed the zombie, it made Lone Wolf's heart full of anger. He asked the school doctor uncle, "Why didn't you shoot just now?" Lone Wolf looked at the school doctor uncle with a malicious face. His hand was still releasing the lightning power. Apparently, he wanted to kill the school doctor uncle. Ning Shu was very nervous. He said to Lone Wolf, "Uncle gave a lot of thought to let you awaken your special ability in a critical moment." Sure enough, he was beloved. He actually awakened the lightning power to restrain zombies. The lightning power was the most harmful to zombies. Lone Wolf heard Ning Shu's sophistry and sneered. "If I didn't awaken my special ability in a critical moment, I'm afraid I would have been killed by the zombies. I will not spare this guy." Ning Shu could see that now that Lone Wolf had the ability, he wanted to take revenge and establish absolute prestige in the team. Lone Wolf's hand flashed with lightning. His face was full of eagerness. Apparently, he wanted to kill the school doctor uncle. The school doctor uncle raised his gun and pointed it at Lone Wolf's forehead. He sneered, "You're just a beginner with special abilities. Let's see if you're faster than my bullets." Lone Wolf's face trembled. He looked at the black muzzle, and then looked at the school doctor uncle's indifferent face. He unwillingly withdrew his special ability. Chapter 101. After Lone Wolf activated his ability, he looked refreshed. His whole body was surrounded by a domineering aura, as if he had control of the whole world. Ning Shu couldn't help but ridicule him in her heart. Looking at Lone Wolf's appearance, he seemed to want to snatch the car, leave her and the uncle behind, and run away. However, he was very afraid of the gun in the uncle's hand, but his attitude was high and mighty. He gave her and the uncle less food to eat, which made Ning Shu despise him. Ning Shu was worried for the uncle. Now she and the uncle were in the same boat. The team continued to walk back. On the way, they encountered a lot of zombies. Lone Wolf killed them all, and became more proficient in using his lightning ability. During a zombie siege, Young Phoenix also awakened her ability, and it was an ice ability. Not long after, Tarantula also awakened his earth ability. Among the 5 people, only Ning Shu and the school doctor hadn't awakened their abilities. They felt like the 2 of them were the odd ones out. Ning Shu didn't know why she couldn't activate her ability, but her strength was getting stronger, and her body was getting lighter and lighter. Obviously, it was due to her peerless martial arts. If she didn't have an ability, then so be it. Ning Shu comforted the school doctor and said, It's okay, uncle. You will awaken your ability one day. The school doctor rolled his eyes at Ning Shu and sneered. You should worry about yourself. Don't get killed by these people. Ning Shu sighed. The school doctor could defeat everyone with his weapon. If she had a whip in her hand, then her lethality would be greater. Uncle, why don't we just run away and not stay with these people? Ning Shu whispered in the school doctor's ear. Ning Shu's hot breath blew on the school doctor's ear. The uncle's ear moved and moved to the side. I hate it when you get so close. Can't we talk properly? Ning Shu's face collapsed. Uncle, we are discussing important things. Don't worry about these details. Oh, the uncle said. But now the other three have awakened their abilities. It's because they've all awakened that we have to run. Ning Shu said anxiously. The two of us can't beat them. No. The uncle refused. Ning Shu opened his eyes wide and asked, Why? These are 3 good materials, the uncle said. Ning Shu. Uft. What did the uncle mean by this? Was he going to dissect those 3 people like a madman? Ning Shu really wanted to shake the uncle's body and beg him to give up such a ridiculous idea. Here, this is your dinner. Young Phoenix threw a box of biscuits and a bottle of water on the ground in front of the school doctor and Ning Shu. The water bottle and the biscuit bag were covered with dust. Fortunately, they were still unopened. Otherwise, how could anyone eat them? Ning Shu's mouth twitched. Previously, young Phoenix was still a little interested in the school doctor, but after Lone Wolf and she awakened their abilities, her attitude changed. The female lead probably felt that only the strong were worthy of her. Besides, she was also a strong person. The uncle without any abilities really had no advantage. Young Phoenix threw the things down and left, leaving the two of them with a noble and cold back view. The uncle held his glasses and raised his eyebrows as he looked at young Phoenix's back. Ning Shu picked up the biscuits and water bottle on the ground, patted the dust on them, and said to the uncle, Don't look, she doesn't like you now. The apocalypse was reality. The school doctor didn't say anything. He supported his chin with his hand and looked at Ning Shu. His expression was very lazy, and he said indifferently, I don't understand what you are talking about. Ning Shu snorted and pretended to be innocent. He didn't believe that the uncle didn't know that young Phoenix was interested in him before. Ning Shu tore open the biscuits, wrung out the water bottle, and handed it to the uncle. He said, Uncle, eat first. Leave some for me. The uncle took the water bottle, drank a mouthful of water, ate some biscuits, and then gave the water bottle to Ning Shu. Ning Shu didn't avoid the uncle's leftover water and ate the biscuits. The school doctor saw that Ning Shu was enjoying the biscuits and sneered. He said, Eating my leftovers, do you have to be so happy? PFFF. Cough cough. Ning Shu hit his chest. Damn, he choked again. Who the hell liked to eat other people's leftovers? It was the uncle's fastidious habit that really made people's balls hurt. If she ate first, the uncle wouldn't even touch it. But young Phoenix only gave them so little to eat. She didn't mind, as long as they could eat their fill. She was despised by the school doctor again. The school doctor reached out his hand and patted Ning Shu's back. He seemed to feel that Ning Shu's back was a little dirty. Then, he wiped the dust off his hand on Ning Shu's body and withdrew his hand. Ning Shu was speechless. The next morning, young Phoenix came to inform the school doctor and Ning Shu that they were ready to leave. The school doctor was still the driver. Lone Wolf and the others were already waiting in the car. Their faces were long, and they were in an extremely bad mood. The reason why Lone Wolf didn't do anything to the school doctor was that they couldn't drive the car. The most terrifying thing was the bomb that the school doctor mentioned. Lone Wolf looked at the school doctor and Ning Shu. So when he faced Ning Shu and the school doctor, his face was full of disdain and arrogance. It was as if letting them live was a great gift. Ning Shu directly ignored Lone Wolf's expression and turned a deaf ear to Tarantula's ridicule. Her skin was extremely thick. Along the way, they encountered a lot of zombies. Finally, they reached the city. It wasn't as desolate as before. The group passed by a city and found that there was no one in the city except for zombies. Originally, they wanted to find some food, but found that the supermarket was basically empty. This gave people a very bad feeling. Ning Shu thought that the country had collapsed and all the people were gathered in the base. Fuck, the country was gone. Who should she give the gene fluid to? Ningshu was deeply depressed. It was already late. The group found a small district to stay in. Some of the wandering zombies in the corridor were killed by them. Ningshu turned on the tap. There was water, but she didn't know if it was drinkable. Forget it, it was better not to drink. The virus had destroyed the whole world. Even the water source had become muddy. Ningshu looked at the school doctor. This was really a sin. Uncle! Ningshu shouted. The school doctor looked at Ningshu indifferently. What's the matter? Ningshu grabbed the school doctor's hand and earnestly said, Uncle, you should give up on young Phoenix. The two of us should run away. There are a lot of abandoned cars in the city. Lone Wolf doesn't need you anymore. Didn't he see that after entering the city? Lone Wolf looked at her and the school doctor's eyes with undisguised killing intent. It was already like this, and the uncle was still thinking about young Phoenix. The school doctor looked down at his hand that was held by Ningshu. He pulled his hand back and said, Your hand is so dirty. Wash it. Ningshu wailed, Uncle. Chapter 102. The thing that made Ningshu the most speechless was that she was clearly telling the uncle a very serious matter. But the uncle always made Ningshu very angry. Uncle! Ningshu shouted weakly. I'm worried to death, Uncle. The school doctor looked at Ningshu with his chin in his hand. Looking at her twisted face, he said lazily, I don't know why you're so grumpy all day. Girl, can't you be good? Ningshu was speechless. Damn, the uncle still despised her. Haha. The team continued to move forward, and finally found a base where humans were gathered. There were many people gathered at the entrance of the base. After walking for so long, they suddenly saw so many people and felt so excited. Ningshu followed behind the school doctor and waited at the entrance to enter the base. The first thing they did when they entered the base was to take a shower. Lone Wolf and young Phoenix were in front of the line. The people at the base registration looked at the others with a superior look. When it was Lone Wolf's turn, they asked, What's your name? How old are you? Have you awakened your ability? Lone Wolf didn't say anything. Lightning flashed in his hands, and crackling sounds could be heard. The scene looked particularly cool. Lightning ability, it's actually a lightning ability. The person at the registration stood up and looked at the ability in Lone Wolf's hand excitedly. His face became respectful and asked, May I ask, what's your name? So that the base can arrange a place for you to live. The surrounding people looked at Lone Wolf with envy, jealousy, and hatred. Ability users had better resources and a better quality of life. Those who didn't awaken their abilities could only be inferior people. Their lives were very difficult, and they could only do some dirty work in the base. Lone Wolf, 28 years old, lightning ability. Lone Wolf said indifferently, looking particularly noble and cold. Next was young Phoenix. Her ice ability also caused a commotion. Tarantula got his room key, and the wood ability of Tarantula. Tarantula got his room key, and turned his head to Ningshu, and made a throat-slitting gesture. Ningshu shot a glance at the Tarantula. She didn't know what she had done to offend this guy to make him hate her so much. When it was the school doctor's turn, Ningshu had always wanted to know his name. The registrar looked at him and asked, What's your name? What's your superpower? Lunatic, the school doctor said. Cough cough. Ningshu hammered his chest. How could he say his code name so bluntly? The registrar obviously didn't know who Madman was. When he heard the name, he coldly looked at the uncle and said, I'm talking about the name. Your name is Madman? Okay. The school doctor answered with a serious face. What special ability? The school doctor shook his head. No superpower. If you don't have a special ability, then you're an inferior person, the registrar said coldly. The school doctor stood aside and waited for Ningshu. When it was Ningshu's turn, Ningshu said directly, Little flower, no superpower. The registrar shook his head and said disappointedly, Another inferior person. Ningshu was speechless. Ningshu walked to the school doctor's side and asked, Uncle, what should we do now? We're inferior people. We don't even have a place to live. It was good enough that the base could take them in. They would only give them some simple things, or live in a shabby house with many people. Lone Wolf and Young Phoenix had already left. They had better accommodation and supplies. But Ning Shu and the uncle were more miserable. The uncle didn't care and walked into the base. Ning Shu hurriedly followed behind him. Wait for me here. I have something to do. Wait for me here. Don't run around. Wait for me to come back. The school doctor said to Ning Shu and turned to leave. Ning Shu obediently waited for the uncle to come back. Then she observed the surrounding environment. The people who passed by her were in two states. One was dead and lifeless. Their faces were gray, as if they could not see any future. They were like walking corpses. One type was people who exuded a powerful aura. Half of these people had awakened their special abilities, and their faces were filled with complacency. These people who had awakened their special abilities looked at Ning Shu. They were sizing up Ning Shu as if to determine whether he was the same kind or inferior. Little flower? A puzzled voice sounded. Ning Shu turned and saw a man in military uniform walking over. He looked at Ning Shu and said with surprise, "You're still alive?" Ning Shu knew from the original owner's memory that this middle-aged man in military uniform was the officer of the special agent team. When Ning Shu saw the officer, he was surprised and surprised. He saluted him. "Sir, where are the others?" The officer looked at Little Flower. Ning Shu said, "Lone Wolf and the others have returned. 2 people were sacrificed." The officer looked at Ning Shu with a rare kindness in his eyes. He sighed and said, "Not long after you left, the country also collapsed." Ning Shu didn't know what to say. He thought about it and gave the gene fluid to the officer. "This is the gene fluid I got. Lone Wolf and the others don't know about it." The officer shook his head and said, "Keep this gene fluid. Have you awakened your special ability?" Now that humans can awaken their special abilities, the gene fluid doesn't have much use. If you haven't awakened your special ability, use the gene fluid. The officer looked melancholy. The apocalypse is cruel. You have to protect yourself. When Ning Shu heard this, she sighed in her heart. This man had taken the original owner out of the orphanage, raised her up, and taught her skills. In the original owner's heart, he was probably the most important person in her life. "Sir, this gene fluid is for you. This is Little Flower's first mission. Little Flower wants to complete the mission given by you." Ning Shu said seriously, and gave the gene fluid to the officer. The officer didn't say anything. He took the gene fluid and asked, "Do you have a place to stay now?" Ning Shu shook his head and said, "Not yet. I don't know where to stay. I'll arrange a place for you," the officer said. Ning Shu was about to nod when he heard the school doctor's voice. "Little Flower." Ning Shu and the officer looked at the school doctor. The school doctor was walking towards them. He was wearing a black windbreaker. When he walked over, everything was blurred. They could only see the school doctor walking towards them. Soon, the school doctor was in front of Ning Shu. Ning Shu introduced him. "Uncle, this is my officer." The school doctor looked at the smile on Ning Shu's face indifferently. He reached out his hand to shake the officer's hand and said, "Hello." The senior officer looked at the school doctor and scanned his face. He frowned and looked puzzled. "You look familiar." The school doctor didn't say anything. Ning Shu raised the key in his hand and said, "I found a place to stay." Chapter 103. Ning Shu saw the school doctor walk around and find a place to stay. Ning Shu looked at the key in the school doctor's hand and said to him, "Uncle, I found a place to stay." The officer said he would find a place for me to stay. The officer was a trustworthy person. To the original owner, the officer was like a father. So when Ning Shu saw the officer, he couldn't help but want to get close to him. The school doctor raised his eyebrows and looked at the middle-aged officer. "You found a place for this girl?" Before the officer could speak, the school doctor said to Ning Shu, "This room is the best in the base." Ning Shu blinked and said, "Thank you, uncle." Since they were already at the base, Ning Shu felt that he shouldn't trouble the uncle. The uncle had helped him a lot along the way. The leader of the special agent group patted Ning Shu's shoulder and said, "Since you already have a partner, then follow your partner. Although I'm one of the higher-ups in the base, it's not good for me to show favoritism. The apocalypse is cruel. It's good to have someone you can rely on." The officer walked away with his hands behind his back. Just like that, he left. Ning Shu turned his head stiffly and said to the school doctor awkwardly, "My officer is quite humorous." The school doctor held the key and looked at Ning Shu. He sneered and said, "Useless. Let's go." The school doctor said to Ning Shu and turned to leave. Ning Shu's face twisted as she followed behind the school doctor. When they arrived at the residential building, the house was indeed quite nice. "Uncle, how did you get this room?" Ning Shu asked. When they reached the door, the uncle opened it and glanced at Ning Shu. "You want to know? Can't I say?" Ning Shu's mind immediately conjured up the scene of killing and robbing. This kind of thing was too common in the post-apocalyptic world. The strong were the truth. Ning Shu and the uncle were still talking when the door beside them opened. A person walked out from inside. They looked at each other and were quite surprised. Ning Shu was surprised by the uncle's ability to choose a room next to the female leads. But young Phoenix was surprised by the fact that two lowly people without abilities were staying here. Young Phoenix sized up Ning Shu and the school doctor and asked, "Why are you here?" Ning Shu shrugged her shoulders. She didn't know why she was here. Seeing young Phoenix's expression as if she had swallowed a fly, Ning Shu was puzzled. Why couldn't she and uncle come here? Young Phoenix's expression made it seem as if they had sullied her. The school doctor glanced at young Phoenix indifferently. He pulled Ning Shu's arm and pulled Ning Shu into the house. Then he slammed the door shut, making young Phoenix angry and hateful. He was just a lowly person without abilities. That man had ignored her before. Now that she had awakened her ability, that man still ignored her. To put it bluntly, young Phoenix felt that her charm had been thwarted by the school doctor, so she resented him. "Why don't you like me? What qualifications do you have to not like me?" Young Phoenix's heart was full of resentment. Ning Shu sized up the room. Before the apocalypse, this kind of room could only be considered ordinary. The room was not very big, at most 70 or 80 square meters. But now this kind of room was really good. It could even be considered a mansion. After all, the base was only so big, but there were so many people gathered here. It was even more valuable to have a private room. Ning Shu was even more curious about how this room came about. "I'm going to take a shower," Ning Shu said, and went into the bathroom. The door was a little low, so the school doctor had to lower his head when he went in. Ning Shu nodded and cleaned the room. He then wiped his sweat and heard the sound of the bathroom door opening. He turned around and saw the school doctor coming out of the bathroom. Ning Shu quickly covered his nose, afraid that he would have a nosebleed. The school doctor came out with a bath towel wrapped around his waist. The towel was loosely wrapped around his body, and his Apollo's belt was exposed. Long legs and a muscular body. Ning Shu's mouth was dry. Although this body was young, "Uncle, you shouldn't be so casual." The school doctor used a handkerchief to wipe his wet hair. The wet hair formed a shadow on his forehead, looking blurred and sexy. Ning Shu was speechless. "Fuck, I really want to pounce on this person." The school doctor saw Ning Shu's dazed look and frowned. "Why aren't you taking a shower? Do you know that you're dirty? I've been tolerating you for a long time." Ning Shu, it's heartbreaking to say such things to a lady. After all, she was a woman. Although she was young, the school doctor didn't treat her as a woman, but as a child. Ning Shu snorted. "Although this body was young, his mental age might be older than yours." Ning Shu went to the bathroom to take a shower. There were a lot of bathing items on the counter. Did these all belong to the school doctor? His worldview was refreshed again. The school doctor's obsession with cleanliness had reached the point where both humans and gods hated him. Ning Shu took a comfortable shower and smelled the fragrance. When he came out, he purposely walked a few rounds in front of the school doctor. The school doctor looked at Ning Shu and frowned. "You're still so ugly even after you've washed yourself clean?" The school doctor's tone was a little strange. Ning Shu felt his knees hurt. "Uncle, can't you be more considerate when you speak? It's too hurtful, too vicious." His heart was tired. "Do you know how to cook?" the school doctor asked Ning Shu. Ning Shu looked at the school doctor with a face full of ignorance. He said shyly, "Uncle, I don't know how to cook." The school doctor looked at him with disdain. "Aren't you a special agent? If you're in an extreme environment and there's no food, Won't you starve to death? I've never seen such a weak special agent. Damn, is the school doctor in dissing mode? He criticized her from her toes to her hair. The conclusion was that she was really a scumbag. In the end, the school doctor saw that Ning Shu didn't care about anything. He put on his clothes and was about to leave. He said, I'm going out to find food. Don't run around. If you get killed, you deserve it. Ning Shu nodded. He wondered if the school doctor was going to rob people again. After a while, the school doctor came back with a bag of things. The way he carried the bag was very handsome. Ning Shu took the bag from him and opened it. It was actually rice. He asked, Where did you find this? Someone gave it to me. The school doctor patted the dust off his clothes and said indifferently, Resources were scarce in the apocalypse. Who would give you things? Cook. The school doctor said to Ning Shu. Ning Shu was dumbfounded. He had spent half his life in the hospital. When he entered the mission world, he had never cooked. Was he going to get a new skill? Chapter 104. In the end, Ning Shu didn't cook. The school doctor looked at Ning Shu's twisted and guilty face and said straightforwardly, Cooking is a waste of food. Then the rice was cooked by the uncle. There was also steamed meat. The meat was cut very evenly, as if it was made from the same mold. The uncle's OCD was really a disease. Ning Shu ate the rice mixed with meat and burped. She was so moved that she almost cried. The apocalypse was really torturous. When she was a little princess, she ate all kinds of delicacies, but none of them were as delicious as this rice. Especially when she had eaten so many hardtack biscuits that her taste buds were about to disappear. Now that she was suddenly eating rice and oily meat, Ning Shu even wanted to hug the uncle's thigh without any shame. The uncle didn't eat the meat, but slowly ate the fried vegetables. His movements were slow and elegant, which was a sharp contrast to Ning Shu's ravenous eating. The school doctor frowned and looked at Ning Shu's oily face. He pulled the corner of his mouth and turned his head away. He couldn't bear to look at her. After eating, she put down the bowl and burped. She was very satisfied. She gave the uncle a thumbs up and said, Uncle, you are quite capable. You can steal cars, dissect people, and even cook. Ning Shu suddenly froze. This was something that happened in the school world. She accidentally blurted it out. Ning Shu looked at the uncle. It seemed that he didn't hear what she said. Ning Shu was relieved. The uncle's ability was great, but his OCD was a bit serious. Also, his tongue was too sharp. It was unbearable. Ning Shu's heart was strong, so she turned a deaf ear to the uncle's sarcasm. The school doctor narrowed his eyes and moved to the side. Can you wash your face and talk to me again? Ning Shu was speechless. That was why the uncle was so annoying. Ning Shu went to the washroom to wash her face. Before she was done, she heard a series of urgent and ear-piercing sirens. It was so loud that it almost pierced her eardrums. Ning Shu quickly came out of the bathroom and asked the uncle, What's wrong? The uncle frowned and said, Zombies are coming to attack the base. Take something to defend against the zombies. Do I have to go too? Ning Shu pointed at herself and asked. The school doctor rolled his eyes at Ning Shu. You have to show your value if you accept the base's protection, little girl. Ning Shu looked at the school doctor in surprise. When did the uncle have such an awareness? The sirens were getting louder and louder. The uncle handed Ning Shu a gun and said, Be careful. Don't rush into the zombie crowd. You don't have a superpower. You can't fight so many zombies even if you have great strength. Uncle's words. Ning Shu, she patted her chest and said, If there is danger, I will run. The school doctor was speechless. The sirens became more urgent. The uncle and Ning Shu went out the door, and they ran into Young Phoenix and Lone Wolf next door. Gulang's cold face was full of sarcasm. A lowly person without a superpower has to fight against zombies. Don't turn into a zombie in the end. The school doctor looked at him coldly. Gulang released his superpower and looked at the uncle warily. The uncle snorted and pulled Ning Shu's arm. They walked past Gulang and Young Phoenix. How domineering. Gulang's handsome face was very long. He realized that he, a superpower user, was afraid of a lowly person without a superpower. It was really humiliating. Young Phoenix looked at the school doctor, who was wearing a black windbreaker. Although this man did not have any special abilities, he was actually quite charming. However, in this post-apocalyptic world where the strong were respected, charm alone was not enough. One had to have strength. What made young Phoenix angry was that this lowly person without a superpower was so rude to her. But he was so nice to Flower. Flower was not comparable to her. The competitive young Phoenix tasted defeat in front of the school doctor. She was thinking about the uncle and wanted to subdue him to wash away her failure. In short, young Phoenix had the uncle in her heart. Flower's hands were covered in frost. She looked at the back of the school doctor and Ning Shu. What was so good about Flower who had nothing? Ning Shu followed the uncle to the base's entrance. He saw an overwhelming number of zombies rushing towards the base's entrance. The rotten smell made people faint. The base's walls were filled with cannons, bombs, and all kinds of new weapons. They were bombarding the zombies. Although they were lethal, they were not enough compared to the number of zombies. Even the people without superpowers in the base used stools and hosed to fight against the zombies. However, the result was tragic. The ordinary people without superpowers were torn apart by the zombies. The zombies did not care about anything else. They tore apart the corpses on the spot. The scene was very bloody. The officer commanded the army to kill the zombies. He turned his head and saw Ning Shu. He frowned. Ning Shu shouted, "What are you doing here?" The sound of artillery shells was very loud. Ning Shu tried hard to hear what the officer said. He then shouted to the officer, "I'm here to fight against the zombies." The officer saw the school doctor next to Ning Shu. He did not say anything and continued to command the army to kill the zombies. There was also an even more dazzling scene, which was the ability users. All kinds of abilities were incomparably gorgeous, and they easily killed the zombies, especially Lone Wolf's lightning ability. When he struck the zombies' heads, the zombies immediately fell down. His destructive power was extremely dazzling. Countless people looked at Lone Wolf with amazement, admiration, and admiration. Lone Wolf felt the eyes of the people around him. His hands moved faster. The lightning in his hands shone brighter. It felt like he was deliberately showing off his skills. Ning Shu retracted his gaze and shot the zombie's head. The school doctor stood beside Ning Shu and did not move. Ning Shu said, "Such a large-scale attack. The zombies behind this are probably not weak. When this kind of zombie comes, you run first. You can't deal with it." The school doctor said lightly. He did not feel ashamed of running away. Ning Shu frowned and asked, "Is it a mutated zombie?" The school doctor nodded. "It is a mutated zombie, but it is stronger than the ones we have encountered before. Zombies evolve much faster than humans." The school doctor placed his hand on the group of paranormals and muttered to himself, "If I can dissect a few paranormals and observe their DNA, the gene fluid should not be just a half-finished product. It should be able to fully activate a person's superpower." Ning Shu was shooting while listening to the school doctor's mumbling. He pointed his ears and asked the school doctor, "Uncle, what are you talking about?" "The zombies are coming," the school doctor said lightly. Ning Shu nodded and began to kill the zombies. Finally, when the zombies were getting closer, Ning Shu directly picked up a long stick, or a hoe on the ground, and directly hit the zombie's head. Then the zombie's head exploded. Now Ning Shu learned to be smart. When the zombie's head exploded, he immediately moved away to avoid being splashed in the face by the zombie's brain. The school doctor stepped back and watched Ning Shu kill the zombies. He casually killed the zombies that came close to him. The scene was in a stalemate. Everyone was trying their best to kill the zombies to keep themselves alive. Roar! An extremely penetrating roar sounded, and the zombies who heard this roar became even more violent, desperately rushing towards the entrance of the base. More and more people died. The air became more and more turbid. The stench, the smell of blood, the dust. Chapter 105. Roar. Another roar was heard. This sound made people's heart beat in disorder. Their blood was surging, and they felt extremely dizzy. When the zombies heard this roar, they became restless. It was as if they had been blessed by some kind of power. They were restless and full of energy. Everyone was very uneasy. The officer commanded everyone and shouted, "Return to the base quickly. Flower, quickly come in." Officer Ning Shu shouted. Ning Shu killed the zombie in front of him with a stick, turned around and ran into the base, standing next to the school doctor. The zombies scratched the base's walls and doors, trying to get in. Looking at the tide of zombies, Ning Shu had goosebumps all over his body. It's coming, the school doctor said in a low voice. Ning Shu turned his head and saw a black dot. It was growing at a speed visible to the naked eye, moving quickly, and finally floating in the air above the base. This was a zombie. This zombie seemed to be no different from a normal person, except for its blue face. And its eyes were moving. Obviously, it was different from ordinary zombies. It obviously had vision. Ning Shu's jaw almost dropped. He turned his neck stiffly, looked at the uncle and stammered. Uncle, it can fly. It completely violated Newton's law of gravity. The mutated zombies they encountered before only had good jumping ability and fast speed. But floating in the air like this was simply challenging people's worldview. The uncle squinted his eyes, looked at the zombie floating in the air, and said, Is it easier to evolve into a zombie? Such a human-like zombie caused a commotion in the base, especially when it could fly like an immortal. It made the people in the base feel shocked and helpless. This zombie was really too powerful. An atmosphere of despair filled the air, making people's hearts more panicked. Fuck, I'll fight you. A paranormal released a golden beam of energy towards the zombie, but the zombie didn't even try to dodge. Ning Shu was stunned for a moment. This zombie couldn't be so weak, right? It looked like a cow, but it was about to be hit. The power directly passed through the zombie's body, and people found that the power hit only an afterimage. So where did the zombie go? Ah, a mournful voice sounded, and people turned around to see that the zombie had directly passed through the chest of the paranormal, who released the power. The zombie's bloody hand was still holding a beating heart. The zombie's eyes were very cold, and it directly threw the paranormal into the zombie crowd. The zombies below suddenly rioted, tearing the paranormal's body. The mutated zombie floating in the air, biting the bloody heart. Ning Shu stretched his neck and swallowed a mouthful of saliva. This scene was really bloody and disgusting. Everyone felt that their hearts were being gnawed by the zombies. With the previous impulsive unlucky guy as an example, they didn't dare to move for a while, and it was even more impossible to rush. He was simply courting death. There were so many people, but the scene was silent, and the rapid sound of the alarm was more ear-piercing. The mutated zombie gnawed the heart in its hand, and stretched out its tongue to lick the blood at the corner of its mouth. Its eyes looked at the group of paranormal, looking at them as if they were food, and it made people scared. Ning Shu thought that the mutated zombie was more interested in the paranormal, who was full of energy. Uncle, what should we do now? Ning Shu approached the school doctor uncle. Why were they in a deadlock now? The school doctor uncle stared at the zombie. What else can we do, run? Ning Shu was speechless. Although he said that, he didn't dare to move. What if the zombie took out his heart if he moved? Especially the paranormal. These people were the focus of the mutated zombie. The zombie looked at them with a pair of cold and ruthless eyes, as if it was trying to guess the taste of its food, and it was really stressful. There's no other way, let's go together. Lone Wolf said with a cold face. Let's go together. As soon as Lone Wolf's voice fell, the paranormal released their powers to attack the mutated zombie. But the zombie was too fast and dodged. Ning Shu was speechless. Zombies were so abnormal. How could they fight against such an invincible existence? However, the culprit was the school doctor uncle standing next to her. But she didn't dare to blame him. The zombie was surrounded by a group of paranormal, and there was always one paranormal that hit him. The zombie roared and looked at the paranormal with red eyes. Although there were so many people fighting the zombie, Lone Wolf and his team didn't have it easy, and they were very embarrassed. The officer ordered people to kill the ordinary zombies, and at the same time, he paid attention to the paranormal situation. Anyone with eyes could see that the paranormal situation was not good. Paranormal was very precious, and the death of one paranormal would cause the base to tremble in pain. Although there were now some people who could activate their powers, the number of paranormal was still very small, and they were a resource that every base fought for. The officer's face was sweating, and the muscles on his face were twitching. Ning Shu looked at him, But there was nothing she could do, because this kind of battle was not something she could intervene in. Ning Shu thought for a moment, and then she picked up the axe and went into the battle circle. She was very fast and strong, so she should be able to fight against the mutated zombie. Although the paranormal had their own powers, their speed and strength might not be as fast as her. Didn't they see that the mutated zombie's strength was its speed and physical strength? Where are you going? The school doctor uncle pulled Ning Shu's arm, raised his eyebrows and asked in surprise. Ning Shu had a hunch that if she said that she was going to kill the zombie, the school doctor uncle would despise her. So she said, "I need to go to the toilet." The school doctor uncle was speechless. "Stay here. If you run over, you will be accidentally injured by the paranormal's power. Don't overestimate yourself." The school doctor uncle said faintly, and then pulled out the gun from his waist, narrowed his eyes and aimed at the zombie. Ning Shu was speechless. The zombie's speed was too fast. "If you can hit the zombie, I will kneel down for you." The uncle pulled the trigger, but he didn't shoot the zombie directly. Instead, he shot at a distance from the zombie. Then Ning Shu saw a magical scene, as if the zombie took the initiative to throw itself at the bullet. The zombie was shot. Ning Shu knelt down with a thud. Fuck, how could this happen? The zombie was stunned at first, and then the muscles on its chest trembled, squeezing the bullet out of its body. Ning Shu kowtowed to the ground. Damn it, both of them were so unscientific. But when the zombie squeezed the bullet out, the paranormal released his most powerful power at the same time, hitting the zombie's body. The huge power directly slammed the zombie to the ground, and the huge power seemed to make the ground shake twice, raising a lot of dust. The zombie's clothes were torn, and the places where the power hit its body were so deep that the bones could be seen. It stood there, glancing at the paranormal, and finally stopped at the school doctor uncle. It seemed that the zombie had a deep impression of the human who hit it. Chapter 106. Although the mutant zombie was hit by the superpower, it didn't seem to have any special injuries, which made people feel helpless. The school doctor was very calm under the gaze of the mutant zombie. Ning Shu suspected that the school doctor's facial nerves were damaged because he didn't have any expression. But when he was mocking her, his face was full of disdain. Roar! The mutant zombie roared twice at the school doctor. Everyone thought that the school doctor would be the next one to be cut open. But the mutant zombie turned and flew away. After a while, it turned into a small black dot and disappeared into the horizon. Ning Shu thought, "It ran away." Everyone heaved a sigh of relief. Their faces were filled with the lingering fear of surviving a calamity. Young Phoenix looked at the school doctor with a complicated expression. Seeing him calmly pull up Flower, who was kneeling on the ground, young Phoenix did not know why, but her heart burned with jealousy. She was jealous that Flower, who had nothing, had such a man who would not leave her. Lone Wolf stood beside young Phoenix. He saw the resentment, jealousy, and love on young Phoenix's face. He said coldly, "He's just a lowly person with no superpowers. You really think he's a hero with some marksmanship? Young Phoenix, what are you thinking?" Young Phoenix looked away and said to Lone Wolf, "I think he's very mysterious. He makes people feel uneasy. That's why I pay special attention to him." Young Phoenix saw Lone Wolf's expression and explained, "He's just a person with no superpower. He can't survive in this apocalyptic world. I always feel that this man is dangerous. That's why I pay special attention to him." Lone Wolf looked at young Phoenix and said coldly, "I hope so." Then he turned and walked away. Young Phoenix frowned and caught up with Lone Wolf. "What do you mean? Are you doubting me? If that's the case, why are we still together? You don't even trust me. If that's the case, let's go our separate ways." Young Phoenix walked faster than Lone Wolf and left him with an angry back view. On the other side, Ning Shu was impressed by the school doctor's superb marksmanship. He kept asking the school doctor how he practiced his marksmanship. The school doctor glanced at Ning Shu and said, "You can calculate the direction of a person's next move according to their movements. You can estimate the distance between you and the target, and the time of arrival of the bullet. This way the hit rate is very high." The school doctor said it very casually, as if it was a very simple thing. It was no big deal. Ningshu knelt down with a thud. It was too fucking complicated. How fast was his brain calculating? Ningshu felt that if it was so complicated, he might as well use an axe and a stick to do it. Don't your knees hurt from kneeling on the ground for no reason? The school doctor looked at Ningshu with disdain. You're useless. It wasn't painful at first, but after hearing what the uncle said, Ningshu felt that her knees were going to break. It was painful. Back in the room, the school doctor went to take a shower again. It hadn't been long, and he had to take a shower again. Ningshu lowered his head and sniffed his collar. After staying with the school doctor for so long, he felt that he was very sloppy. After the school doctor came out of the shower, he was only wrapped in a bath towel. Ningshu felt his hands itching. He wanted to pull the bath towel off the uncle. It was better not to wear it. Go take a shower, the school doctor said to Ningshu while wiping his wet hair. I feel good. I don't need to take a shower, Ningshu said. After the apocalypse, even drinking water was a problem. How could there be so much water to take a shower? There was a little sweat smell, but it was not that unbearable. The school doctor stopped wiping his hair and looked at Ningshu indifferently. His gaze made Ningshu's hair stand up. The school doctor crossed his legs. His two slender legs were faintly discernible under the bath towel. Ningshu tilted his head and looked under the bath towel. It was really annoying. I'm talking to you. The school doctor saw Ningshu tilting his head and staring blankly. He couldn't help but say, it's okay if you're stupid, but your ears have problems too. You can't be saved. Ningshu came back to his senses and wiped the saliva from the corner of his mouth. When he was about to take a shower, the doorbell rang. Ningshu quickly went to open the door. There was an officer in military uniform standing at the door. When he saw the officer, Ningshu was surprised. He asked, Officer, why are you looking for me? I'm not looking for you. I'm looking for your partner, the officer said and entered the room. He looked around but didn't see anyone. Ningshu asked, where is he? The school doctor was still there. Ningshu said, he probably went to get dressed. The school doctor was only wrapped in a bath towel. The officer looked at Ningshu and said, you're still young. You're already with him? Ningshu was speechless. What did he mean? Did the officer think that the uncle was naked because he did it with her? Ningshu's mouth twitched. You're thinking too much. The uncle was such a pervert. It was still a question whether he liked women. After a while, the school doctor came out of the room. He was wearing a white shirt and a black windbreaker. When he saw the officer, his face was indifferent. Well, I have something to talk to you about. Let's go out and talk, the officer said to the school doctor. He was very respectful to the school doctor. The school doctor's eyes swept across Ningshu's face. He nodded and followed the officer out. The school doctor turned back and said to Ningshu, there are biscuits if you're hungry. Don't touch the food. You can wait for me to come back and cook. Ningshu nodded. He didn't know what they were talking about. Why did they have to avoid him? Was there a secret? Not long after the school doctor left, the doorbell rang again. Ningshu was a little surprised. He came back so soon. When he opened the door, he saw that it was young Phoenix. Young Phoenix looked at Ningshu with a cold face. Ningshu wanted to close the door without thinking. Young Phoenix blocked the door and said coldly, Flower, what's with your attitude? Ningshu mobilized the internal force in his body and closed the door. He clapped his hands. She didn't come without a reason. Ningshu didn't even give young Phoenix a chance to speak. Young Phoenix knocked on the door outside. The person inside refused to open the door. Young Phoenix said coldly, Flower, I advise you to open the door quickly. Otherwise, I will destroy your door with my superpower. Damn, he was so arrogant that he came knocking on her door. Ningshu said through the door, What do you want from me? I'm not looking for you. I'm looking for your roommate, young Phoenix said. Flower opened the door. What day was it today? Why did so many people come to the school doctor? Was it because they were amazed by his shooting skills? Uncle isn't here. Come another day, Ningshu said. Flower, I asked you to open the door. What's with your attitude? Do you think that you're going to be arrogant when you come to the base with an officer supporting you and a man protecting you? Young Phoenix's voice was sharp through the door. Chapter 107. Ningxu was speechless. She didn't approach young Phoenix at all, but the other party was trying to make trouble for her. She stayed far away from the protagonist. Why? Was her charm too low? Ningxu was considering if she should add some of her attributes to her charm. A charm of 1 point was too shabby. Ningxu was thinking about why the female protagonist didn't like her. Outside the room, young Phoenix was pounding on the door and calling Ningxu's name. Flower, flower. It was like she was asking for his life. Ningxu opened the door and asked young Phoenix angrily, "What do you want?" "I'm looking for your roommate." Young Phoenix pushed Ningxu away and walked around the room. She didn't see the school doctor. Ningxu asked, "Where is he?" Ningxu's heart felt like it was about to explode. She questioned her so confidently. Ningxu said, "I already said that he's not here." "Where did he go?" Young Phoenix asked again. Ningxu rolled her eyes and said, "How would I know?" Young Phoenix sat on the sofa and waited. Ningxu was stunned. What did she mean? Did she have to wait for the school doctor to come back? Ningxu and young Phoenix didn't speak. The room was quiet. Ningxu didn't want to entertain guests. He didn't even pour a glass of water for young Phoenix. "Flower, do you know your roommate?" Young Phoenix suddenly asked Ningxu. "By the way, what's his name?" She didn't know the school doctor's name. His code name was Crazy, but she didn't know his name. Ningxu shook her head and said, "I don't know." Young Phoenix's face turned ugly. "Flower, what do you mean? I'm just asking for his name." Damn it, she really didn't know the uncle's name. Ningxu said impatiently, "I said I don't know, so I don't know." "You." Young Phoenix was choked by Ningxu's attitude. She said coldly, "Flower, don't be too proud." "What am I proud of? What's there to be proud of?" Ningxu could not understand what young Phoenix meant. Did young Phoenix think that she deliberately did not tell the uncle her name? It was just a name. There was nothing he couldn't say. Young Phoenix's expression was cold. An icicle appeared in her hand, and she pointed it at Ningxu. Ningxu immediately pulled out his gun and said coldly, "Young Phoenix, what are you doing?" "Hua, you are just a lowly person who has yet to awaken an ability. How dare you talk to me like that? Believe it or not, I can kill you and the officer won't say anything," young Phoenix said coldly. Ningxu was speechless. He squinted his eyes and aimed at little Phoenix. He said loudly, "Little Phoenix, is there something wrong with your brain? Why did you come to my house to kill me?" He really couldn't understand what the female lead was thinking. "Based on your attitude towards me, it wouldn't be too much for me to kill you." The icicle in young Phoenix's hand was spinning. The icicle was very sharp. When it came into contact with the air, it emitted white smoke. Fuck, she was really crazy. What was the female lead's mentality? Ningxu saw young Phoenix's teeth itching. He wondered if he had offended young Phoenix in some way. After arriving at the base, he had no contact with young Phoenix. The school doctor who was talking to the officer came back. When he walked into the room, he saw the two women confronting each other. He raised his handsome eyebrows and said, "What are you doing?" As he spoke, he pulled out a gun from his waist and aimed it at young Phoenix. Young Phoenix was a lot more nervous when facing the school doctor. After all, he was someone who could even hit a zombie. Young Phoenix didn't think that she could be faster than a zombie. The school doctor looked at Ningxu and said calmly, "What are you doing? You're so useless that they came knocking on your door." Ningxu was speechless. Young Phoenix put away the icicle in her hand and said to the school doctor, "Put away your gun. I am not an enemy." The school doctor put away his gun and asked young Phoenix coldly, "What's the matter?" Young Phoenix did not know what to say. She came to this man on impulse. Because of this man, she quarreled with Lone Wolf. "I quarreled with Lone Wolf." Young Phoenix blurted out her thoughts and looked at the school doctor. The school doctor was confused and confused. This was the first time Ningxu had seen such an expression on the school doctor's face. The school doctor was surprised and said, "What does it have to do with me?" Ningxu was speechless. Young Phoenix's face turned green and then white. When she saw Ningxu's smile, she felt as if she was soaked in boiling water. Her whole body was burning. The young Phoenix rushed out of the room and slammed the door. The door made a loud bang, and even the dust on the wall fell down. Ningshu dug his ears. It was really loud. Ningshu turned to the school doctor and said, "Uncle, she is here to act coquettishly." "What the hell?" The school doctor frowned. Ningshu said, "Dust the sofa." Ningshu asked, "Why should I dust the sofa? The place where she sat is very dirty," the school doctor said indifferently. Ningshu was speechless. She was hopeless. The school doctor made some food for Ningshu. It was enough for one person. Ningshu asked, "Aren't you eating?" "I have eaten," the school doctor said indifferently. Ningshu pursed her lips. The officer did not even bring her along to treat people to a meal. "Uncle, there is only one bed. Where am I supposed to sleep?" This was a single-room apartment, and there was only one bed. Therefore, Ningshu wanted to know where she was. The school doctor said indifferently, "You want to sleep with me?" When he spoke, his gold-rimmed glasses reflected the light. He looked very creepy and dangerous. Ningshu quickly waved her hand and said, "I can sleep on the sofa." The school doctor nodded. He was obviously very satisfied with this suggestion. Ningshu pursed her lips. She was a woman. Shouldn't she sleep on the sofa and show her manliness? She felt that the school doctor did not see her as a woman at all. At night, Ningshu curled up on the sofa and looked at the school doctor on the bed with resentment. He really wanted her to sleep on the sofa. Whoosh whoosh. In the middle of the night, Ningshu was sleeping soundly when an ear-piercing alarm sounded. Ningshu sat up in shock, as if she was on the verge of death. Her entire body was in a daze. When she turned her head, she saw the uncle get out of bed and put on his jacket. "The zombies are attacking the base. Get up." The school doctor adjusted his collar and buttoned up his shirt. "Ningshu, attacking the city in the middle of the night. Oh my God." Ningshu jumped off the sofa and picked up the guns, sticks and axes on the table. She followed the school doctor out the door. Many people rushed to the entrance of the base. Some people did not even put on their clothes. They put on their clothes as they ran. At the entrance of the base, a huge searchlight shone on the zombies outside the base. These zombies tirelessly rushed towards the entrance of the base. Even if they were blocked by the electric fence at the entrance, and were electrocuted until their bodies smelled black, they did not know fear. Chapter 108. The zombies were really smelly, and the rotten smell could make people faint. Ningshu stood on the high wall of the base and looked at the zombies below. She felt very bitter. She had been in the apocalypse for so long, and she had given the gene solution to the officer. Why hadn't the system let her go back? Roar. The roar was very familiar. It was from the mutated zombies during the day. It was really endless. Did they want to fight with the base? The rocket bombs attacked the zombies, but the endless zombies were rushing over. At night, people's vision was limited. Paranormals had super strong vision, but it was a challenge for ordinary people. The mutated zombie was suspended in the air, and the searchlights were focused on it. The mutated zombie had changed its tattered clothes and was wearing new clothes. It looked no different from a normal person. Ningshu looked up at the zombie. She was really annoyed. This zombie was as intelligent as a human, and it was particularly difficult to deal with so many zombies. It was like cheating. Ningshu shot the head of the ordinary zombies, and the paranormals dealt with the mutated zombies. So many paranormals were powerless to deal with the mutated zombies. If the paranormals were not careful, their hearts would be taken out by the mutated zombies. It simply made people's hearts turn cold. Ningshu was killing zombies while paying attention to the situation of the mutated zombies. The uncle didn't do anything, as if he was just a bystander. But no one said anything, as if they didn't see the carefree school doctor. Ningshu was killing zombies when she suddenly felt a huge force on her back. Her body involuntarily flew forward, and the worst thing was that she was flying in the direction of the mutated zombies. Ningshu hurriedly circulated her chi and turned back. When she turned around, she saw that it was young Phoenix who had done it. Ningshu's heart was like a grass mud horse. The plot was really irresistible. Was she really going to die in the hands of young Phoenix and be dismembered by zombies like in the original plot? Ning Shu instantly understood why the system hadn't summoned her back for such a long time. There was still such a thing. Flower dodge. Ning Shu shouted as he pulled out his gun and fired at Ning Shu. The bullet didn't hit Ning Shu, but hit the zombie behind Ning Shu. However, when Ning Shu tried to escape, the zombie still managed to injure his back. He felt the zombie's nails scratching his back painfully. Ning Shu was so angry that he couldn't care less. He ran towards Young Phoenix and fired a shot. Young Phoenix released an ice shield to block Ning Shu's bullet. Fuck, even if I die, I'll drag you down with me. Ning Shu ran over and grabbed Young Phoenix's collar. Then, he smashed Young Phoenix to the ground like a whip. Once, twice. Young Phoenix's face turned green as blood spurted from its mouth. It looked at Ning Shu with fear in its eyes. Lone Wolf saw Young Phoenix's situation and quickly came to its aid. Ning Shu directly used his chi to stab Young Phoenix's heart with a sharpened wooden stick. Young Phoenix's body moved a little, and the stick avoided its heart and pierced its stomach. Young Phoenix wailed in pain. Lone Wolf rushed over with lightning flashing in his hand. He was about to hit Ning Shu's head, but in the next second, Lone Wolf's hand was pierced by a bullet. Blood spurted out. Ning Shu was stunned for a moment before his wrist was grabbed by someone. Ning Shu didn't think and wanted to fight back with the wooden stick. "Girl, it's me." The school doctor's voice was very low. Ning Shu calmed down and looked up at the school doctor. Useless. The school doctor pulled Ning Shu into the base and didn't intend to care about the zombies at the gate. Back in the room, Ning Shu felt pain in his back. It was very painful. It was as if salt was sprinkled on the bleeding wound. Ning Shu's body began to tremble. Could it be that this mission couldn't be completed? Lie down. The school doctor uncle said to Ning Shu. Ning Shu looked at the needle in the school doctor uncle's hand and asked, "Uncle, what is this?" "You are infected with the zombie virus." The school doctor poked Ning Shu's arm with the needle. The whole needle went into the skin. It was too painful. Fuck, couldn't he be gentler? Then Ning Shu realized a problem. She was caught by zombies. She was infected with the zombie virus. Did that mean she would become a zombie? Fuck, how could this be? She thought about how the school doctor uncle killed an infected agent without hesitation. She couldn't have been killed by the uncle, right? Ning Shu endured the pain in his back and asked the school doctor uncle, "Uncle, what did you inject into me?" Was it because they knew each other and gave her a euthanasia drug? The school doctor uncle frowned and looked at Ning Shu. He said, "This drug can prevent your brain from being invaded by the virus to a certain extent." Hearing this, Ning Shu felt relieved. The school doctor wouldn't kill her directly. She guessed that she would become a research subject. This was good. "Uncle, can you give me some painkillers?" Ning Shu was in so much pain. The places where the zombies scratched were burning. The heat began to spread to the whole body. Ning Shu could even hear the cells in his body wailing. They were tortured by the powerful virus. Even his brain began to feel pain and heat. The virus had spread to his brain. Ning Shu finally understood why zombies were like walking corpses. They were monsters without any thoughts. It was because the virus was too destructive. Flower focus. The school doctor patted Ning Shu's face. Ning Shu tried to open her eyes and look at the school doctor uncle. Ning Shu was in so much pain. She didn't know how long the pain lasted. Everything in front of her blurred. An alluring scent that she had never smelled before entered her nose. She was extremely hungry and wanted to pounce on the man in front of her, press down on his body, bite his neck, cover his chest, and then dig out his beating heart that was full of temptation. Ning Shu wanted to make a sound, but found that her speech system had been destroyed. She couldn't say anything. When she opened her mouth to make a sound, it was like air was leaking out of her throat. Fuck, life was full of evil. She had become a zombie. She wanted to circulate her chi, but found that the chi in her body was gone. Her body had become clumsy. Ning Shu was speechless. But he was very hungry now. There was a living person beside him. Ning Shu reached out and wanted to grab the school doctor uncle. A cold black thing was placed on her forehead. "Don't point a gun at me." She was afraid. Ning Shu suddenly quivered and retracted her claws. The school doctor uncle looked at Ning Shu. Conscious. Ning Shu couldn't hear what the school doctor was saying. The virus had destroyed her hearing. She couldn't see very well. It was like 800 degrees of myopia. She couldn't distinguish between humans and animals. Chapter 109. The school doctor talked to Ning Shu, but Ning Shu was confused and couldn't hear what the uncle was saying. The uncle gave up talking to Ning Shu. The school doctor found a hearing aid from the box and hung it beside Ning Shu's ear. Ning Shu was speechless. "Can you hear me?" The school doctor raised his voice and asked. Ning Shu nodded with difficulty. Actually, she couldn't hear clearly. She didn't know if it was because the medicine was effective or because she was thinking about the mission. She was determined to complete the mission and kept a clear mind. However, her desire for human flesh didn't decrease at all. Her sense of smell became very sensitive. The smell of the base was too fragrant, but Ning Shu resisted and felt disgusted by human flesh. However, she instinctively wanted to eat it. Damn, the struggle in her heart was really intense. After a difficult night, Ning Shu completely turned into a zombie. She couldn't speak, her movements were slow, and she was in a state of hunger. She wanted to eat the man beside her at any time. Every time she showed such thoughts, there would be a black muzzle pointed at her. It made Ning Shu's unbeating heart spasm twice. What the fuck was this? What should she do about the mission? "We have to leave the base now," Ning Shu said. Ning Shu heard it with difficulty, but Ning Shu was very much in favor of leaving the base. She was now a zombie, and in the base, she was a monster who killed people. Especially if the young phoenix was fine, it would definitely take revenge on her. She felt that the young phoenix wouldn't die so easily. In any case, it was the world's favorite and had a lot of luck. However, Ning Shu couldn't walk fast at all. Looking at the school doctor in front of her, she couldn't catch up. The school doctor turned around and saw Ning Shu's slow movements. He squatted down and said loudly to Ning Shu, "Come up, I'll carry you." Ning Shu looked at the uncle's white shirt and black windbreaker. If she dirted them, the uncle would kill her. "Hurry up. Let's leave while everyone else is busy." The school doctor turned around and saw that Ning Shu was not moving. He pulled Ning Shu's hand and put it behind his back. Ning Shu was very touched. Then he started to drool, especially when he saw the uncle's snow-white neck. He really wanted to take a bite. It was too fragrant. He had never felt that the uncle was so charming. "Little flower, if you drool on me, just wait for your head to explode," the uncle said coldly. Ning Shu felt wronged. She was now a disabled person. Her brain couldn't control things like drooling. The uncle shoved Ning Shu into the car and drove away from the base. No one knew what was going on. Lone Wolf's hand that was shot by the uncle was bandaged. He came to find trouble, but found that the building was empty. Lone Wolf was so angry that he destroyed everything in the building. The school doctor ran far away from the base. Ning Shu wanted to ask the uncle where he was going, but she couldn't speak. Every time she opened her mouth, the uncle would think that she was going to bite him. The gun was pointed at her head, making Ning Shu feel very stifled. She just wanted to talk. The school doctor brought Ning Shu to a laboratory. The laboratory was very desolate. The entrance was under an old withered tree. However, the more Ning Shu walked, the more familiar it felt. She had been here before. Was this the uncle's nest? Ning Shu saw a corpse soaked in a huge glass bottle. It was the corpse of a beautiful woman. Her body was curvaceous. Ning Shu was shocked when she saw her face. Wasn't this Ling Shui? The facial muscles were twisted. It seemed that she suffered a lot before she died. Ning Shu felt a chill in her heart. She felt that the school doctor brought her here with bad intentions. Could it be that he didn't want to dissect a human and wanted to dissect a zombie? Ning Shu looked at the school doctor with a pair of blurred, myopic eyes. The school doctor took off his black windbreaker and changed into a white coat. Coupled with his glowing gold-rimmed glasses, Ning Shu was so scared that she almost peed her pants. He looked even more like a perverted scientist. "Lie down." The school doctor adjusted the glasses on the bridge of his nose. "Ning Shu, what are you talking about? I can't hear you. I can't hear you. I can't see you. Lie down on the operating table." The school doctor shouted at Ning Shu again. This time his voice was louder. The whole laboratory echoed. Ning Shu was still confused. She didn't hear anything. Lie down and let him dissect her? You're good at pretending to be stupid. Ning Shu walked over. Ning Shu stepped back. The school doctor directly dragged Ning Shu and pressed her on the operating table. Then, her limbs were cuffed by the handcuffs on the operating table. Ning Shu's heart turned cold. She finally understood how Ling Shui felt when she was lying on the operating table. She was at the mercy of others. Save me. Ning Shu desperately blinked her eyes at the school doctor. Uncle, please let me go. There are so many zombies. Why do you want to dissect me? The school doctor saw Ning Shu blinking her eyes. Hey, are you going blind? The virus in the mutated zombie also mutated? Ning Shu. The school doctor took a needle and wanted to draw some blood from Ning Shu's arm, but he didn't find any blood vessels. The school doctor seemed to be impatient. He directly pierced the aorta on Ning Shu's neck and drew out a needle of blood. Mom, help. The uncle is so perverted. Although the virus destroyed her nerves and she couldn't feel pain, the feeling was too horrible. Seeing that the uncle was busy and didn't seem to want to dissect her, Ning Shu's heart was relieved. She opened her eyes and looked around. Then she saw the pale body soaked in formalin. Ning Shu swallowed a mouthful of saliva. She wanted to tear it. She was hungry. Disgusted and eager, Ning Shu felt like she was going crazy. Looking at the uncle in the laboratory studying her blood, smelling the smell of the uncle, her heart was burning. Please give me something to eat. Ning Shu felt that she was now a monster with only appetite. After a while, the uncle washed his hands several times. Then he sat next to the operating table. He looked at Ning Shu and said, "Girls, stay rational." Ning Shu wanted to cry. You are hovering next to me. No matter how rational I am, I can't control it. You don't understand the pain in my heart. The school doctor in front of Ning Shu ate some hardtack and drank some water. Seeing Ning Shu staring at him, he asked, "Do you want to eat?" "I want to eat you." Ning Shu roared in her heart. She nodded to the uncle with difficulty. The uncle broke off some hardtack and put it in Ning Shu's mouth. Ning Shu chewed with difficulty and swallowed it. What the hell is this? It's not delicious at all. It's like people eating sand. If only the uncle could give her some blood. Chapter 110. Ning Shu didn't know how long she had stayed in the lab. She was starving every day, but she didn't starve to death. It was just that this appetite was tormenting her. The school doctor took the test tube, pinched Ning Shu's chin, and poured some liquid into her mouth. Ning Shu smacked her lips. There was no taste. What was this? Ning Shu tried to use her blurred eyes to ask the uncle what this was. The uncle's brain waves finally matched with Ning Shu's. He said, "This is gene fluid." Ning Shu. Pfft. Why did he give a zombie like her to drink gene fluid? The school doctor frowned and asked, "Do you feel anything?" Ning Shu shook her head. She didn't feel anything. She just wasn't that hungry anymore. She didn't feel like dying from hunger anymore. Could it be that this gene fluid was an energy source? Girl, how about now? How do you feel now? The school doctor asked again. Ning Shu opened her mouth and used her lips to tell the school doctor that she wasn't that hungry anymore. You don't feel that hungry anymore? The school doctor guessed. Ning Shu immediately nodded. The school doctor's face flashed with understanding. He said, "No wonder zombies are also interested in gene fluid. Zombies are interested in humans and eat humans as food. Maybe zombies also want to replenish their body's genes. The intuitive manifestation is their extreme desire for humans." Ning Shu. Perverted scientists were too scary. No matter if it was a psychic or a mutated zombie, the ultimate goal was to become an evolved human. The school doctor gave Ning Shu another test tube of gene fluid. Ning Shu felt great. It was much easier to control her body than before. The school doctor took off his white coat and put on a black windbreaker. It seemed that he was going to go out. Ning Shu stared at the school doctor and used her eyes to ask, "Uncle, where are you going?" The school doctor pushed up the gold-rimmed glasses on the bridge of his nose. Ning Shu said, "I'm going out. Stay here." Ning Shu looked at the school doctor and thought, "You must come back." The lab was very quiet. Ning Shu was lying on the operating table. Her hands and feet were tied. Her heart was very sad. The most unbearable thing for Ning Shu was that she seemed to have lost her ability to sleep after becoming a zombie. He wanted to sleep but couldn't. Insomnia was really painful. After an unknown amount of time, the school doctor uncle came back with half of a female corpse. The other half of the body seemed to have been eaten by zombies. It was bloody and disgusting to look at. The school doctor's face didn't change. He directly put the body on the other side of the operating table and started dissecting the body. Ning Shu was watching from the side. She almost wanted to kneel down in front of the uncle. Ning Shu really admired his calm expression, but he didn't know where the uncle had found the corpse, or if he had taken it from a zombie. The school doctor started working busily. He even collected samples from the soaked Ling Shui's body for comparison. Then, Ning Shu lay on the operating table bored. What Ning Shu wanted to do the most was to get up and walk around. But the uncle had no intention of letting her go. "Uncle, you think too much. I don't dare to touch you at all." The school doctor, who had been busy for a long time, seemed to have completely forgotten about Ning Shu's existence. Ning Shu chuckled twice to make her presence known. But the school doctor still ignored her. Ning Shu stared at the school doctor. His face was cold and his body was tall and straight. What a mysterious person. The school doctor was too mysterious. After an unknown amount of time, the uncle finally finished his work. He threw the body into the formalin, washed his hands countless times and ate something. After that, he said to Ning Shu, "This time, let's try using the gene fluid extracted by the psychic." Ning Shu was forced to drink the gene fluid that hadn't been tested. When she drank it, she felt like she was drinking chilly water. Her whole throat was burning. Since she became a zombie, she didn't feel pain. When she drank the gene fluid, she felt numb. It felt like she was drinking sulfuric acid. She was really a poor lab rat. After drinking it, Ning Shu felt that her head was much clearer, and her thoughts were much more active. She was no longer as muddle-headed as before. Although she was conscious, she felt that her head was very heavy. There was no change for the time being. The school doctor didn't ask. He lay on the operating table and fell asleep. Ning Shu looked at the school doctor silently. "Damn it, watching him sleep while I can't sleep. It's so painful." Ning Shu thought and finally closed her eyes and fell asleep. Even Ning Shu didn't know how she fell asleep. She couldn't sleep before. "Flower, wake up." The school doctor pushed Ning Shu's body. Ning Shu opened her eyes. She was stunned because she could see very clearly now. The school doctor's face was very clear in front of her. "How do you feel?" the school doctor asked. Ning Shu nodded. She felt very comfortable. The school doctor saw that Ning Shu's movements were very smooth. She didn't feel like a robot like before. He took the gene fluid and poured it into Ning Shu's mouth. "Try to see if you can talk," the school doctor, Ning Shu, said while writing something in a notebook. Ning Shu opened her mouth and shook her head at the school doctor. She couldn't talk. It wasn't easy to make zombies talk. The powerful zombies that attacked the base couldn't talk. They could only howl like beasts. The school doctor unbuttoned Ning Shu's clothes. "Ning Shu." "Oh, uncle, what are you trying to do?" Ning Shu wanted to express her surprise, but her facial muscles weren't strong enough. The school doctor ignored Ning Shu. He took water and wiped the dust off Ning Shu's body. This feeling was no different from washing a test tube. The school doctor's expression was very indifferent. He said with disdain, "I've never seen such a dirty person." Ning Shu. She was a zombie now, but she still had to endure the school doctor's severe mysophobia. Meeting the school doctor was really an unbearable burden in her life. Looking at the school doctor wiping her body without hesitation, Ning Shu felt very ashamed. After he finished wiping her body, the school doctor washed Ning Shu's hair and sprayed disinfectant all over her body. Ning Shu. He was bullying her for not knowing how to talk. After everything was done, the school doctor sat beside Ning Shu. He looked at Ning Shu lazily and said, "Do you want to get up?" Ning Shu quickly nodded. She really wanted to get up. She didn't want to lie in the operating room. This feeling was too horrifying. Especially when the school doctor was holding a shiny scalpel in his hand. This feeling was even worse. "Not now," the school doctor said, and put the scalpel on the tray. It made a crisp sound. Then he took out a syringe and directly inserted it into Ning Shu's aorta to draw blood. Let me see your cell division. The school doctor looked at the blood in the syringe under the light. Ning Shu. Damn, can't you be gentler? Chapter 111. Ning Shu and the school doctor just stayed in the lab and didn't go anywhere. The school doctor studied the changes in her body every day and occasionally pricked her neck with a needle. She didn't know if it was because she was fed too much gene fluid, but she didn't feel pain before. Now that she was pricked by the uncle, it was like being bitten by an ant. This meant that she was recovering from the pain, but the uncle was still as simple and crude as before. She couldn't tell the uncle that she was in pain. Ning Shu felt that she was now a lab rat being used by the uncle to study the evolution of zombies. Ning Shu was already very satisfied that she was still alive. Girl, do you remember? The school doctor raised his handsome eyebrows and looked at Ning Shu. Ning Shu immediately nodded. She really remembered what it felt like to be disinfected by the uncle twice a day and wash her hair twice a day. She felt like she was going to become bald. The uncle unlocked the chain and said, "If you dare to break the things in the lab, you can wait for your head to explode." Ning Shu was speechless. After unlocking the chain, Ning Shu moved, and then the bones all over her body made a crackling sound, as if they were rusty. Standing up, Ning Shu walked 2 steps, and then jumped. Her body was very agile, and her jumping ability was very good. So she was now a mutated zombie? What a colorful life. How do you feel? The school doctor asked Ning Shu. Ning Shu gave him a thumbs up, but when he retracted his hand, he bumped into the shelf. Then the shelf fell down with a crash. The flasks and test tubes used for experiments all fell to the ground and shattered into pieces. Ning Shu was speechless. She just bumped into the shelf. How could it fall down? Ning Shu looked at the school doctor's indifferent face, expressionless, and the gold-rimmed glasses reflected a cold light. Ning Shu wanted to explain, but the moment she opened her mouth, she could only chuckle. She could only bend down and pick up the medicine on the ground. Then, she casually pinched it, and the medicine inside burst open. The chemicals inside sprayed out. Ning Shu was speechless. Was she that strong? Even those who had mastered peerless martial arts would not have such great strength. The school doctor looked at Ning Shu indifferently. Ning Shu felt bitter, especially when he saw the school doctor touching the gun at his waist. Ning Shu almost knelt down. Damn it. If she said it was an accident, would the uncle believe her? The uncle picked up the things on the ground. Ning Shu wanted to help, but the school doctor looked at her indifferently. Ning Shu immediately withdrew her hand. Emma, now she must learn to control this body. After tidying up the lab, the school doctor led Ning Shu out of the lab. Ning Shu used his eyes to ask the uncle where they were going. The school doctor ignored Ning Shu and drove as if he was looking for something. Ning Shu's ears twitched. There were zombies nearby. Ning Shu wanted to remind the uncle, but the uncle glanced at her and said, "I don't want to talk to you now." Ning Shu was speechless. The uncle was still angry about the lab. It was an accident. Roar! The roars of the zombies were getting closer. Ning Shu looked at the uncle's indifferent face. Ning Shu wondered if the uncle was deaf. After a while, the zombies surrounded them. The school doctor was not in a hurry. He was just taking a walk, and even stopped the car. Seeing so many zombies, Ning Shu's heart trembled. She quietly approached the uncle. The uncle pushed Ning Shu away, opened the car door and kicked Ning Shu out. Ning Shu was speechless. Ning Shu was in a mess. What was the uncle doing? Why did he throw her into a group of zombies? Help, there are so many zombies. Ning Shu looked at the zombies around her and slapped the car window. Uncle, help. She could not deal with so many zombies. She would be torn apart by them. You are a zombie, not a human. The school doctor saw Ning Shu's panicked look. Ning Shu was speechless. She still felt that she was a human and not a zombie. Ning Shu looked around and found that the zombies did not attack her. The zombies around her did not dare to come close. Ning Shu let out a sigh of relief. Oh my god, that was so scary. I thought I was going to be torn apart by the zombies. Go kill the zombies and control your strength. The school doctor sat in the car and said to Ning Shu. Ning Shu was stunned for a moment, and then excitedly went to kill the zombies. The zombies seemed to have felt Ning Shu's breath. When they saw Ning Shu coming over, they turned their heads and went in another direction. They seemed to be deliberately avoiding Ning Shu. Ning Shu looked at the zombie's head and squeezed it hard. The zombie's head was like a piece of tofu in her hand. She squeezed it easily, and the gray brain matter splashed on her face. Ning Shu stared blankly at her filthy hands. Why was she so strong? Hua I don't have enough disinfectant to wash your body. Pay attention to your hygiene. The school doctor looked at Ning Shu's face that was covered in brain matter, and could not bear to look at it. You looked like this when you were a human. You still look like this after becoming a zombie. Ning Shu had a certain understanding of her own strength. She picked up a wooden stick from the ground and smashed it on the zombie's head. Then, the zombie's head exploded, just like a hammer smashing a walnut. It felt very good. Okay, you can come back. The school doctor uncle shouted to Ning Shu. Ning Shu heard the uncle's voice and immediately opened the car door. She wanted to sit in the car, but the door was pulled down by her. Ning Shu looked at the car door in her hand and then looked at the school doctor uncle's indifferent face. The school doctor uncle's eyes reflected a dangerous light. Ning Shu was speechless. She suddenly became a strong woman. It felt so complicated. Take the car door and sit on the roof. The school doctor uncle said indifferently and pointed at the roof. Ning Shu curled her lips. She held the car door with one hand and climbed onto the roof of the car. She sat on the roof. Sigh, there was so much dust on the roof. When they returned to the laboratory, the uncle threw Ning Shu into the pool to wash up. He then started to eat. Ning Shu saw the uncle eating and swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Of course, it wasn't because of the biscuits in the uncle's hand. It was because of the uncle's neck. She wanted to take a bite and drink some warm blood. Ning Shu silently approached the uncle and took a deep breath. It smelled so good. Ning Shu slowly approached the uncle's neck. The uncle turned his head, and his lips brushed past Ning Shu's face. He spat in disgust and took out a gun and pointed it at Ning Shu's forehead. Ning Shu was immersed in the aroma when she suddenly felt something cold on her forehead. She shuddered and looked up to see the black muzzle of a gun pointed at her. Ning Shu pretended to be at a loss and innocently moved to the side, away from the uncle. The uncle took out a bottle of gene fluid and threw it to Ning Shu. Drink this. Ning Shu gently opened it and gulped down the gene fluid. It was like drinking chilly water. It tasted very good. Chapter 112. Every time Ning Shu drank the gene fluid, she didn't feel hungry, and the smell of the school doctor's body was no longer attractive to her. This gene fluid was really a treasure. From now on, would her food be the gene fluid that tasted like chilly water? It seemed that this kind of thing was very rare, and the uncle didn't have much. Ning Shu burped, sat on the ground and leaned against the wall for a while. Every time she drank the gene fluid, she seemed to be a little sleepy. Flower, how do you feel now? The school doctor asked Ning Shu. Ning Shu lifted her eyelids and made a gesture of wanting to sleep. The uncle wrote something in his notebook, and Ning Shu said, "Sleep on the operating table. You can sleep anywhere. You don't look like a woman at all." Ning Shu was speechless. Uncle, sleeping on the operating table would be weird. She was a zombie now, and the term woman should have nothing to do with her. Sleep on the operating table. The school doctor pointed at the operating table. Ning Shu could only climb onto the operating table to sleep, and then the school doctor inserted a needle into Ning Shu's neck. The school doctor looked at the purplish-black blood and said, your lifespan will be very long. Ordinary zombies have a very long lifespan, but they have to endure the endless torment of appetite. The lucky zombies that have evolved are all advanced humans. Superpowered people and zombies have the same goal. They both want to evolve themselves. The school doctor shook the blood in the test tube. Your cell division is very slow, and there is basically no cell death. This means that your life will be infinitely extended. Ning Shu was speechless. So complicated. She was a child who had never been to school, and Ning Shu, who only had elementary school knowledge, didn't understand what the school doctor was talking about. The school doctor went to study the blood, and Ning Shu was sleeping on the operating table. She didn't know how long she slept, but when Ning Shu woke up, she felt very good. She didn't feel like a zombie at all. She looked in the mirror, and her face was a little green, and her skin was dry. Let's go out, the school doctor Uncle Ning Shu said. Seeing Ning Shu looking in the mirror, he glanced at Ning Shu's face and said faintly, TSK. I feel that there is no difference between a human and a zombie. You don't look good. Ning Shu felt as if an arrow had pierced through his heart. Even when speaking directly, he had to consider whether others would be able to take it or not. He followed the uncle out of the lab. Were they going to kill zombies again? Sit on the roof of the car, Uncle Ning Shu said. Ning Shu, why? Isn't your car door fixed? Under the gaze of the school doctor, Ning Shu silently climbed onto the roof of the car. This was definitely discrimination against a zombie like her, not even allowing her to get on the car. This time, the uncle didn't seem to specifically look for zombies. Instead, he brought Ning Shu to a tall building, and then a human and a zombie climbed onto the highest floor of the building. Ning Shu looked down. It was quite high, more than 20 meters. As she was afraid of heights, Ning Shu took 2 steps back and looked at the school doctor uncle with a puzzled expression. What were they doing on the roof, overlooking the world? The school doctor uncle looked at Ning Shu. Ning Shu's heart suddenly surged with a bad feeling. She took 2 steps back and looked at the uncle vigilantly. The school doctor uncle grabbed Ning Shu's hand. Ning Shu was confused. What was he trying to do? The school doctor uncle directly threw Ning Shu down the building. Ning Shu held the uncle's hand tightly and looked at the uncle with a pitiful expression. Uncle, don't let go. Fuck, the uncle was going to push her down the building. Please let go, I'm going to die. Let go. The school doctor uncle swung his hand twice, but didn't manage to get rid of Ning Shu. He repeated, let go. Ning Shu shook her head. If she fell from 20 meters, she would become a meat patty. You're a zombie. Even if you fall, you won't die. The school doctor uncle said. Now you should be able to overcome gravity and float in the air. Ning Shu. Oh fuck, he didn't have to directly throw her down the building. What if something happened? Let's see how you feel when I throw you down the building. Useless. The uncle pulled Ning Shu up. Ning Shu patted her chest in fear. The school doctor uncle looked at Ning Shu. Ning Shu immediately pretended to be at a loss. Since you're afraid of heights, let's go to a lower floor. The school doctor uncle looked at her with disdain. Again, Ning Shu bitterly followed the uncle downstairs. At 15 meters, the school doctor uncle looked at Ning Shu. Ning Shu quickly shook her head. It's too high. The school doctor uncle looked indifferent. His gold-rimmed glasses reflected a dangerous light. Ning Shu lowered her head and didn't look at him. Fuck, this uncle is too evil. Then the uncle took Ning Shu to the 10-meter floor. Then he looked at Ning Shu. Ning Shu shook her head with difficulty. It's still a bit high. After that, they reached the 5-meter floor. The school doctor uncle's thin lips were tightly pursed. He raised his chin and looked at Ning Shu. The uncle's body was very oppressive. If she still thought it was too high, the uncle would probably go berserk. What do you think about this height? The school doctor uncle asked indifferently. Ning Shu stretched her neck and looked outside. She really wanted to ask if it could be on the 2nd floor. Under the uncle's gaze, Ning Shu nodded with difficulty. Then, before Ning Shu could react, she was kicked down the stairs by the uncle. Help! Ning Shu's heart was roaring. Her ears were filled with the whistling of the wind. Mama, she was so scared. Plop. Ning Shu fell into the garden. She raised her head and spat out the soil in her mouth. She was really unlucky. Flower, come up quickly. The uncle's voice was like a demon's. Ning Shu got up and checked her body to see if she was injured. She checked again. Luckily, there were no injuries. Wait, she wasn't injured. Did the representative have to continue? Girl, come up. The uncle's voice sounded again. Ning Shu slowly prepared to climb up the stairs. Then she heard the uncle say, Don't climb the stairs. Jump up. Ning Shu, what the fuck? He wouldn't give up until he forced her to death. Ning Shu looked up and met the uncle's eyes. Then, she silently looked away and checked if there was anything around her that she could use to jump up the stairs. Ning Shu picked a big tree not far from the building and quickly climbed up the building. Then, she crouched down and jumped towards the uncle's position. Ning Shu was just giving it a try. She didn't expect that she would really jump up the stairs. Ning Shu looked at the uncle who was just inches away from her, and suddenly reached out to hug him. Then the two of them fell to the ground. Ning Shu was on top of the uncle. Her hand touched the uncle's chest, and she could feel his beating heart under her hand. The school doctor's face was indifferent. He pressed the gun against Ning Shu's forehead. Ning Shu immediately got up from the school doctor's body and helped the uncle up. The school doctor glanced at Ning Shu. He patted the dust off his clothes with a look of disgust and disgust. He looked very irritable. OCD and severe mysophobia. Uncle, you're hopeless. Chapter 113. The school doctor used an inhumane training method to make her master the ability to walk in the air. Ning Shu had no choice but to learn how to jump. Without any support, she was able to walk in the air. This was something that went against science, but the uncle, a scientist, still tried his best to make her practice. The key point was that the uncle was not a good teacher. Every time she did not do well, he would disdain and humiliate her in all aspects. Why hadn't she left this world yet? Fuck. When would these days come to an end? Ning Shu felt uncomfortable as she watched the uncle record data in his notebook every day. The school doctor looked at Ning Shu, shook his head and said disdainfully, "A zombie that retains consciousness is really incomparable to a zombie that regains consciousness." Ning Shu was speechless. Ning Shu also felt that in her heart, she still thought of herself as a human, just wearing the skin of a zombie. She was different from mutated zombies. Fortunately, Ning Shu's speed was very fast now, and she could walk in the air. Back in the lab, the uncle gave Ning Shu a small bottle of gene fluid. Ning Shu was very grateful to the school doctor uncle and showed a ferocious smile. The school doctor uncle turned his head and ignored her. Ning Shu drank the gene fluid. She felt that her body did not need this gene fluid because her hunger was not as strong as before. She also felt that this body had entered a bottleneck. It should be able to evolve, but she did not know how to evolve. This body was already very strong with infinite strength. It could fly without wings and walk in the air. Ning Shu tried to open her mouth, but could only make simple syllables. Now Ning Shu had to learn to speak like a child. The school doctor uncle ate the biscuits, turned his head and looked at Ning Shu, but did not speak. Ning Shu was confused by his stare. She looked at him with inquiring eyes and stuttered. What's wrong? The school doctor uncle frowned, looked a little puzzled and said, "You said that your body is now under advanced genetic modification. The genes will automatically modify the body's defects. Why is your face still like this?" Ning Shu, fuck, are you mocking me for being ugly? Ning Shu really wanted to push the school doctor down, bite his neck, and dig out his heart. The uncle's words really hurt his self-esteem. Venomous tongue, mysophobia, obsessive-compulsive disorder. Uncle, no one in the world can save you. You are destined to be alone for the rest of your life. After resting in the laboratory for a night, the school doctor gave Ning Shu a bag. Ning Shu opened the bag and saw that there was quite a lot of gene fluid inside. They were all in small bottles, and there was quite a lot of it. Ning Shu was confused. Why did the uncle give her so much geno fluid? The school doctor did not say anything. Ning Shu followed him out of the lab, and he felt that the atmosphere was not right. Ning Shu very obediently climbed onto the roof of the car. The school doctor uncle Ning Shu waved his hand and said, "Sit in the car." What was wrong with him today? She felt that there was something wrong with the uncle. Ning Shu sat in the car silently. The school doctor drove the car aimlessly. She didn't know where he was going. "Da uncle!" Ning Shu shouted. The uncle stepped on the brake and looked at Ning Shu. "Fuck, if you have something to say, just say it. People are originally cold and ascetic. Uncle, do you know that your ghost value has reached max? Get off." The school doctor uncle Ning Shu said, "Bring your bag." Ning Shu said, "Oh," and got off the car. The school doctor uncle also got off the car. He walked in front of Ning Shu and said, "You are a zombie. You should adapt to your new life." Ning Shu blinked. "What does this mean? This geno fluid should be enough for you to drink for a while." Your body doesn't need any more genofluid. I have more important things to do, so I won't take you. The school doctor uncle said indifferently. Fuck, the uncle is going to abandon me. Before she was tortured by the uncle, she was fine. But now she is going to be separated from the uncle. Ningshu's heart suddenly felt sour. The uncle can be considered as her second parent. Ningshu stretched out her hand and pulled the uncle's sleeve. She slowly said, Uncle, take me with you. My fighting ability is off the charts. The school doctor uncle stretched out his finger and touched Ningshu's forehead. He sneered and said, I don't want to take a sloppy woman. Since we are going to be separated, I might as well say goodbye first. Ningshu was speechless. The school doctor uncle got on the car. The car was very fast and disappeared in front of Ningshu. Ningshu felt even more desolate. Now the situation was like releasing a wild animal back to nature. Ningshu thought for a while and chased in the direction where the uncle disappeared. However, she didn't find the uncle. Instead, she encountered a lot of zombies. These zombies didn't attack Ningshu. Obviously, they treated her as one of their kind. Maybe it was because Ningshu was more advanced than these zombies. Some of the zombies actually followed behind Ningshu. Ningshu used all the horsepower to get rid of these zombies. She didn't want to be followed by a group of roaring zombies wherever she went. It was a torture to her ears. It wasn't easy to find the laboratory that she was in before. However, there was no one in the laboratory. Some of the things had been destroyed by the uncle. The laboratory was empty. Ningshu deeply sighed. Where did the uncle go? Then where should she go now? Ningshu was suddenly at a loss. She didn't know where to go. The mission had been carried out until now. Why didn't they let her go back? Ningshu left the laboratory. She didn't have a specific destination. She had to find a target for herself. Chapter 114. Ningshu ran in the direction of the roar, looking for the mutated zombie to take revenge. When Ningshu found the place, she saw the mutated zombie floating in the air from a distance. Seeing this zombie, Ningshu's eyes turned red. When enemies meet, their eyes turn red. Fuck. She had never suffered such a big loss. Below the mutated zombie was an army of zombies. A team of humans was surrounded by zombies. The paranormals in the team struggled to kill the zombies and protect the supplies in the truck. Ningshu casually glanced around and saw Young Phoenix in the team. Young Phoenix was wearing tight black leather pants that accentuated her curves. When she was killing zombies, her black hair fluttered in the wind, making her look devilish and sexy. She really didn't die. At that time, her wooden stick had already pierced through Young Phoenix's body, but she was still fine. Ningshu sneered. It was really a small world. She looked around. Except for Young Phoenix, she didn't know anyone else in the team. Young Phoenix actually came out to look for supplies? Roar! The mutated zombie floating in the air suddenly turned its head and roared twice at Ningshu. Ningshu listened to the roar of the zombie and felt that it had a certain frequency, transmitting some kind of message. Roar! The mutated zombie roared twice at Ningshu. This time the roar was a lot more urgent. Ningshu understood that the zombie wanted her to fight. Fight your sister. I am here to duel with you. The actions of the mutated zombie attracted the attention of the humans. Young Phoenix looked over and saw Ningshu. She looked surprised and killed the zombie in front of her with an icicle. She looked at Ningshu with vigilance. Ningshu's body floated up and walked toward the mutated zombie. The mutated zombie looked at Ningshu with a tilted head. Its nose moved and looked a little puzzled. It was sure that the person in front of it was the same kind. Ningshu floated in the air and looked at Young Phoenix below. She smiled and said to Young Phoenix, "Long time no see." As soon as Ningshu spoke, the Young Phoenix's expression became even more surprised. She shouted, "Huar, you're still alive?" Young Phoenix looked around and didn't see the man who used to be with Ningshu. Now that she saw Ningshu walking in the air like a zombie, Young Phoenix's face twisted. "What the hell are you?" Young Phoenix asked Ningshu. Zombies couldn't speak but Flower could. Ningshu crossed her arms and looked at Young Phoenix, saying, "Guess." "Flower, you've become a zombie. Even if you've become a mutant zombie, the nucleus in your head is mine." You used to be a good-for-nothing person. Even if you've become a zombie, you're still a good-for-nothing. I'll kindly accept your nucleus. Young Phoenix raised her eyebrows. Her whole body seemed to be unusually cold, and her temperament was ice-cold. Ningshu touched his head with some doubts. What is a nucleus? He felt that after not going out for a while, he could keep up with the changes in society. The icicle in young Phoenix's hand shot toward Ningshu. Ningshu just moved his body slightly and dodged her attack. When young Phoenix saw that Ningshu had dodged her attack so easily, her face turned cold. She bit her lip and reached out to touch her abdomen. There were still scars on her abdomen. She almost died that time. If it wasn't for Lone Wolf's efforts to save her, she really would have gone to see the King of Hell. Now that she saw Ningshu, especially when she saw that Ningshu had become stronger, her heart was particularly angry. She continued to attack Ningshu with her icicles. Ningshu flashed directly in front of young Phoenix. Then he clenched his fist and hit young Phoenix's head. Young Phoenix's pupil shrank. She immediately condensed an ice shield to block Ningshu's attack. Ningshu sneered and used more strength. He directly broke the ice shield, and then hit young Phoenix's head. Young Phoenix's face turned pale. Looking at the fist in front of her, young Phoenix's face uncontrollably became ferocious. It was too fast. She didn't even have a chance to dodge. Just when Ningshu thought that his fist would explode young Phoenix's head, a person suddenly appeared in front of him. He hugged young Phoenix and used his back to block Ningshu's fist. Ningshu was stunned. He wanted to retract his fist, but it still hit the person's back. The man and young Phoenix rolled a short distance away. Ningshu frowned and looked at the man who was protecting young Phoenix in his arms. The man was vomiting blood, but he anxiously asked young Phoenix how she was. Young Phoenix was shocked. She wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth in panic. Her voice trembled as she cried, Linwen, why are you so stupid? As long as you're okay. It's good that you're okay. Linwen's mouth kept bleeding as she spoke. Young Phoenix turned her head and looked at Ningshu with hatred in her red eyes. Flower, I want you dead. How dare you hurt him? I want you dead. Ningshu was speechless. Ningshu inexplicably felt that he was a villain. Then, the man who risked his life to save young Phoenix should be the supporting male lead. Therefore, every time the male and female leads were in danger, someone would come to their rescue. In the end, justice prevailed over evil. Bah, she was not evil. There was no such thing as evil or not. It was just that she was in a different position. Should she wait for the female lead to take the crystal nucleus out of her head? A strong force erupted from young Phoenix's body. This force made Ningshu narrow his eyes. It was mixed with the smell of zombies. Did superpowered people use zombies' crystal nuclei to improve their superpowers? This power was not weak, and Ningshu was very vigilant. She floated in the air and looked down at the young Phoenix. The young Phoenix's face was filled with grief and indignation. It looked at Ningshu with eyes full of hatred. Ningshu was speechless. In this situation, shouldn't the supporting male lead be treated first? Even if he killed her, it would delay the treatment. Ningshu felt that his heart was broken. Young Phoenix's body erupted with dense and powerful icicles, sweeping towards Ningshu. Ningshu increased his speed to avoid these icicles. Flower, if you have the ability, don't dodge. Fight me one-on-one. Young Phoenix shouted angrily. Why don't you dodge? You're just a target. Ningshu sneered in his heart. Ah, a mournful and painful voice sounded. Ningshu looked over and was stunned. The supporting male lead abandoned by young Phoenix could not be saved. Young Phoenix turned around and saw that Linwen's heart had been taken out by another mutated zombie. Young Phoenix's eyes were bloodshot. Her face was filled with grief and anger as she released icicles towards the mutated zombie. However, the mutated zombie casually dodged and floated in the air. He held the heart in his hand and looked indifferent. Linwen. The noble and cold young Phoenix held the man's body and cried, Young Phoenix, you must be happy. The man's head tilted, and then he stopped breathing. Chapter 115. Ningshu witnessed a touching scene where the supporting male sacrificed his life for the female lead. Ning Shu's heart was filled with an indescribable feeling. In Ning Shu's view, this person called Lin Wen was just a tool to stop her, a tool to save the female lead. If young Phoenix didn't insist on killing her and ran away with this man, she might not have died. There was really someone who sacrificed so much for the person he loved. He didn't ask for anything, and when he died, he still wanted the person he loved to be with another man. Really stupid, so selfless. It felt like a person who lived for the female lead. Didn't he have his own thoughts? Ning Shu was also drunk. Someone was injured, yet he insisted on taking revenge at this time. Saving a life was more important than anything else. Ning Shu looked at the mutated zombie in front of her. The mutated zombie was holding a heart that was still dripping blood. Ning Shu was speechless when she saw this. At this time, not far away, there was an army green tank driving towards them. Ning Shu was stunned for a moment. Fuck, it was actually a tank. Moreover, these tanks were actually equipped with long-range rockets. Ning Shu's heart spontaneously felt a sense of danger. The mutated zombie also roared, and the ordinary zombies immediately rushed towards the tank. However, this tank was very domineering and directly ran over. When young Phoenix saw the tank, her face suddenly showed a surprised expression. Then she raised her face and looked at Ning Shu. She said in a fierce voice, "Flower, your time has come. You killed Lin Wen. I will avenge Lin Wen." Ning Shu pointed at the mutated zombie and said, "I didn't kill her. He killed her. Can't you see that your spare tire's heart is still in his hand?" The mutated zombie that was pointed at by Ning Shu turned his head. Ning Shu roared, "Today, all of you will die." Young Phoenix was so angry that her face turned red. "Flower, I will not only dig out your head, I will also throw you into the research institute and make you suffer." Ning Shu patted his chest. He was so scared. Ning Shu looked at the approaching tank, especially the black rocket launcher. The sense of danger in Ning Shu's heart grew stronger. He turned around and ran. Flesh and blood could not withstand firearms, especially high-temperature weapons. They could directly vaporize a person. "Flower, why are you running? Aren't you very capable?" Young Phoenix shouted angrily when she saw Ning Shu run away without any integrity. Ning Shu simply ignored young Phoenix's words. If he didn't run, he would die. The colossal zombie saw Ning Shu running away and hesitated for a moment before chasing after Ning Shu. Ning Shu turned his head and saw the colossal zombie. He almost fell from the sky. "Fuck, I haven't even settled the score with you yet, and you've come here yourself. That's good. I won't have to look for you everywhere in the future." Ning Shu sped up, and the colossal zombie also sped up. After running for a long time, Ning Shu found an abandoned warehouse and planned to live there. Although he was now a zombie, he was still a human. There was no way to eat and sleep in the open. The colossal zombie followed Ning Shu into the warehouse. Ning Shu turned his head and looked at the colossal zombie. His expression was very cold. Zombies have a numb expression, and a pair of gray eyes gave people a feeling of horror. The colossal zombie handed the bloody heart in his hand to Ning Shu. It seemed that he wanted to be friends with Ning Shu. Ning Shu shook his head and did not take the heart. He was a zombie that had broken away from vulgar interests. He absolutely would not eat this thing. "Roar!" The variant zombie roared at Ning Shu. Ning Shu ignored him. The colossal zombie saw that Ning Shu really did not want it, and then he ate the heart himself. Ning Shu stretched his neck and swallowed a mouthful of saliva. It was too fucking disgusting. "I said don't eat this. It's useless." Ning Shu could feel that the colossal zombie had evolved to a bottleneck like her. It was not enough to just eat the corpses of human paranormals to supplement the missing genes. The colossal zombie did not understand what Ning Shu was saying. After eating the heart, Ning Shu roared. Ning Shu stretched out his hand and punched the colossal zombie's face. The result was like punching a piece of iron very hard. Ning Shu stretched out his foot and kicked the colossal zombie's stomach. The man was sent flying with a kick. He crashed into the wall, causing it to crumble. "Roar!" Ning Shu roared angrily. It seemed to be questioning Ning Shu why he attacked him. The colossal zombie probably felt wronged. He had already given his heart to her. Why did she still attack him? Ning Shu sneered. If it was not for this bastard in front of her, she would not have become like this. If it was not for this uncle, she would have become a zombie without consciousness. She could not go back to the system space. From then on, she would become a zombie controlled by appetite. She would not know when her head would be blown off. Thinking of this, Ning-Shu felt cold. He felt that the colossal zombie in front of him was more and more disgusting. Ning-Shu became angrier and angrier. He beat the colossal zombie. The colossal zombie roared to summon nearby zombies while fighting with Ning-Shu. A pair of gray eyes looked at Ning-Shu. Its pupils trembled, and it roared at Ning-Shu. Pung! The colossal zombie fell to the ground. Ning-Shu stretched out his foot and stomped on the colossal zombie. The ground cracked, but the colossal zombie was still alive. Ning-Shu sighed and took back his foot. It was not easy to kill this kind of zombie. Ning-Shu roared. Ning-Shu dug his ears. If you want to talk, then talk. Don't always howl. If you don't know how to talk, then shut up. Roar! Ning-Shu. Ning-Shu looked at the colossal zombie vigilantly. Seeing that the colossal zombie had no intention to attack, he went into the warehouse and prepared to find a place to sleep. The colossal zombie also followed Ning-Shu in. Seeing Ning-Shu lying down, he also laid down. Ning-Shu whispered. Ning-Shu saw the colossal zombie's actions and suddenly understood why the colossal zombie followed him. It was to learn. Although the colossal zombie had powerful abilities and was rational, but it acted based on instinct. Fuck. Why do I feel like I got into trouble again? I don't care about the grudge of the claw. You should hurry up and leave. Ning-Shu turned over, and the colossal zombie next to him also turned over. Ning-Shu. What the hell, what is this? Ning-Shu was especially angry. He sat up and stared at the colossal zombie. The colossal zombie turned his head and looked at Ning-Shu. Hurry up and leave. Ning-Shu roared. Play. The colossal zombie's pronunciation was not accurate. His eyes were staring at Ning-Shu's lips. Ning-Shu, go. When Ning-Shu spoke, his lips moved exaggeratedly to let the colossal zombie see clearly. Beat. When the colossal zombie spoke, it was like air was leaking from his throat. He always made a sound. So go. Ning-Shu roared. Go. This time the colossal zombie finally pronounced the words correctly, but it felt very awkward. Ning-Shu felt very tired and laid down. The colossal zombie next to him kept repeating, go. Beat. Go. Chapter 116. Beside Ning-Shu was a repeater. Whatever Ning-Shu said, it would repeat. Over and over again, it made Ning-Shu's head hurt. Why did she always meet such a weirdo? And no matter what she did, the mutated zombie would follow. She couldn't kill it, so it followed her every day. It made Ning-Shu feel so bad. Her hair that was washed by the uncle was now in knots. She missed the uncle so much. She suddenly understood that the uncle's feelings towards her were the same as her facing this zombie. It was so stupid that she wanted to strangle him. Compared to the mutated zombie, Ning-Shu felt that she was quite smart. If the school doctor uncle faced this zombie, Uncle would have killed this zombie a long time ago. Flower, my name is Flower. Ning-Shu pointed to herself and said to the mutated zombie word by word. Flower. The mutated zombie followed. Flower duo air. Ning-Shu repeated. The mutated zombie. Flower air. Well, these 3 words were too difficult for the mutated zombie. Ning-Shu was too lazy to correct him. Flower is flower. Flower, flower. As long as the mutated zombie learned a word, it would keep repeating it, just like the band tightening spell. Sometimes the mutated zombie would run out and come back with a bloody heart for Ning-Shu to eat. Ning-Shu. After explaining to this guy for a long time, he finally understood that she didn't eat this thing and didn't give her bloody heart. Ning-Shu saw him like this and didn't reject him. He guessed that this guy didn't remember that he had hurt her. After all, there were too many people who died in his hands. However, Ning-Shu taught the zombie seriously. 2 zombies could communicate with each other. In order to facilitate communication, Ning-Shu gave the zombie a name, Xiaoming. Then the mutated zombie happily accepted the name. Every day, it would either be Xiaoming or Flower. After staying in the abandoned warehouse for a long time, Ning-Shu also felt bored. He decided to find young Phoenix and go to the base where the officer was. Young Phoenix should also be there. Little Ming, I'm leaving. You don't have to follow me. Ningxu planned to wander around alone. It would be good if he could find young Phoenix. However, Ningxu felt that he would find Little Phoenix. Since Little Phoenix hated her so much, the plot would give Little Phoenix a chance to take revenge. Xiaoming looked at Ningxu and stammered, "Go where?" "I don't know." Ningxu shrugged. "I'll go," Xiaoming said. "Follow me if you want." In any case, he had a powerful companion. The most important thing was that this guy had the ability to summon zombies. Ningxu had always wondered why she couldn't summon zombies. Then, Ningxu dragged a little tail behind him and wandered around aimlessly every day. When he had nothing to do, he would teach Little Ming how to speak. Little Ming, on the other hand, became more and more fluent in speaking. Ningxu tentatively took out the gene fluid. He wanted to see if Little Ming would steal his gene fluid. It turned out that Ningxu thought too much. Little Ming didn't seem to like drinking the gene fluid. Between the heart and the gene fluid, Little Ming firmly chose the heart. Ningxu guessed that Little Ming was used to one kind of food and didn't want to change his diet. Therefore, when Ningxu was hungry, he would generously take out the gene fluid and drink it. After walking for several days, he basically didn't see anyone. All he saw were wandering zombies. He couldn't see half a human figure. This gave Ningxu the illusion that human beings were extinct. Ningxu said to Little Ming, "In the future, don't kill people, especially people with abilities." "Why?" Little Ming looked at Ningxu in confusion. To Little Ming, humans were just food that he could take as he pleased. "Everyone has been killed. What are you going to eat in the future?" Ningxu said snappily. It was difficult for human beings to survive. Ordinary zombies were tortured by hunger. Living was worse than death. Variant zombies were too strong. Little Ming seemed to understand, but his eyes turned. Apparently he was thinking. Ningxu was thinking that humans now seemed to be able to use the energy nuclei of zombies to enhance their abilities. He estimated that it wouldn't be long before humans became strong. Ningxu pried open the heads of zombies. Some zombies had an irregular crystal in their heads. Some zombies had it. Some zombies didn't. Some were only the size of a grain of rice, while others were the size of a thumb. Ningxu guessed that this should be the source of the zombies' power. Ningxu asked Little Ming if he had such a thing. Little Ming nodded. Ningxu touched his head. He suddenly wanted to know if his head also had this kind of lump. This kind of foreign object in the head didn't hurt or itch. It felt very strange. It felt like zombies and humans were opposed to each other, but they also needed each other. Zombies wanted to eat humans, and humans needed zombie nuclei to enhance their abilities. He didn't know when this kind of struggle would end. He didn't want to destroy this plane. Ningxu and Little Ming wandered around for a long time. Finally, they saw a car. Little Ming reflexively wanted to gather the zombies, but he was stopped by Ningxu. Little Ming looked at Ningxu in confusion and asked, "Why?" "Let's secretly follow and see which base these humans are from," Ningxu said. "Why?" Little Ming asked again. "I'm looking for someone." "Of course, we're following," Ningxu said. "Why don't we go and ask?" Little Ming asked again. "Damn, 100,000 whys," Ningxu said unhappily. "Just listen to me. If we go and ask like this, we'll be attacked." "I can call the monsters," Little Ming said. "I'm not afraid of them." The monsters that Little Ming was talking about were ordinary zombies that didn't have any intelligence. Little Ming also gave these zombies such a fashionable name. Feeling that the topic was getting more and more off topic, Ningxu said directly, "Shut up. We'll follow." "Shut up, shut up, shut up." Little Ming turned on the repeater mode. Ningxu was speechless. Ningxu followed the car in front stealthily. He couldn't be discovered by these people. Little Ming, who was behind, followed suit. Every time he saw Little Ming learn the good and bad things, Ningxu felt guilty. He didn't know what Little Ming would be like in the future. Ningxu chanted Ba in his heart. He hoped that Little Ming would be a good youth in the future. Ningxu followed the car to the base and entered the base. Looking at the base, Ningxu could only sigh silently. It was fate that brought her to the previous base. Was she courting death by running in front of the young phoenix? Seeing the base, Little Ming reflexively wanted to gather his monsters. Ningxu pulled him and said, "Let's find a place to rest next to the base." "Why?" Little Ming asked. "I'm not sure if the person we're looking for is in the base." Ningxu replied, "If the monsters come, they'll come out. They're afraid of the monsters." Little Ming said seriously, "No, they're more afraid of you." Ningxu heard Little Ming's simple and crude method, and had a feeling that he couldn't refute. "Don't bother. Do your own thing." Ningxu put on a serious look. Little Ming said, "Oh, you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure."